And yes, we did. I'd like to call this meeting to order, special meeting with the Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District. And please, would you do the roll call?
Sure. Epstein,
Present.
Schroeder, Perot,
Present.
Taranda,
Here.
and Dorber here. So it's 4 out of 5.
Okay. And I just want to do a sound check. Is the sound clear? Anyone remote?
We can hear you, Peter. John is here present. So you're 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All good?
You can hear everyone, Tommy?
We can hear everyone. Bob's a little faded.
Is this better?
That's much better.
Okay.
Thank you.
About me.
Peter, you
Yep.
saw I was here. I was off getting a cup of tea.
We got you, John.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
yes.
thanks.
Bertrand, we can hear you.
All right, great. Just wanted to finish the sound check. Eric, announcements.
Just like to thank everyone for attending the special meeting. If anyone would like to comment on Zoom, please use the raise your hand function.
And the next is corrections to the agenda or the consent calendar. I have a couple. I'm going to see who else has some. First of all, I noticed that reauthorizing AB 386, which allows us to be remote meetings. That was, I think it should have been on the consent calendar, so I'd like to add that to reauthorize. Okay. Secondly, for 9F on the snow removal budget, we have the opportunity to hear directly from David Wall about his experience this year. And I'd like to just schedule that for 2:30. So wherever we are during the meeting, I would rearrange things so we can start at 2:30. Also, he's chairman. So I'd like to thank him for many years of service. They have a chance to be able to ask him about snow removal. And then lastly, I just want to comment on the operations budget on 9D. We'll still have it in that place, but I just want to say 2 things about it. The first is when this meeting got moved up, we really should have deferred that section to next month because we didn't give staff enough time to really get it done. So what I'd like to focus on 9D are the policy questions that come up for the next budget and not these. So we'll cover that when we get to that point. But those are the changes that I've got a few cycles when you go to that. Okay. Yeah, for the next week. Yeah,
That'd be great.
I think so. I think that's the best use of our time. And I want to apologize to the staff. We asked them to do beyond the call, to have a brand new staff try to do this for the first time 10 days early. Was unfair. And I'll take my share of responsibility.
There's a lot of here.
Yeah, there is. Okay, so those are my changes, corrections for the calendar as operation. That's the operation budget. What the calendar. So those are the changes that I suggest. Do we need a vote on that?
Yes, if there's a correction to the consent calendar, then yeah, you should.
Okay.
At least the correction to the consent calendar. The other things you don't need a vote on.
Okay. So our motion to.
Yeah, Dorber, so moved.
Okay, so we're adding 81.
Sure. Epstein, Schroeder,
Hi.
Taranda,
Hi.
oh,
Aye.
Dorber, it's unanimous.
Okay. So the next item is comments from the audience, a chance for members of the public to address the board on any items that are not in the agenda subject matter. Is there anyone on?
There is Joan Parker.
Okay.
Hello. Let me get to my comment. My name is, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Joan Parker, and my husband Larry Parker was unable to attend today's special meeting due to jury duty. He asked me, though, to advocate for the KMPUD to acknowledge the district's recent significant challenges, including multiple propane shortages, propane pressure failure, and snow removal difficulties by performing cause analyses to determine the immediate, root, and common causes, implement corrective actions to prevent recurrence, and share this information in a newsletter and on your website. This effort will go a long way to demonstrate your commitment to direct accountability to your voters and ratepayers.
Okay, thank you, John, and please thank Larry. It's an excellent today.
Just real quick, Doug, can you give me a confirmation that switching microphones helped? Bob?
I didn't quite understand what he just said. Eric, you're coming through perfectly clear for me, but I think the board members are difficult to understand for at least me, similar to the, I think was it January or February meeting where we had some issues. It's not that much better than it was before, but I apologize if it's just on my side, but it seems like someone at the Q&A had issues as well.
Bob, so if we can go each board member in turn, just say something.
I'm sending Chris in.
Did you hear me?
Faint, but we can hear you. But
Both those microphone array, so let me try line. Let me try this one. Is it still on?
Everything's, yeah, everything's on. Yeah. We had tested it with the array setting this morning with Brittany.
Yeah,
The Zoom and everything was fine. We did the same test when we got here.
indeed. Bob, give it a shot. See what.
Just try one more time to see if this microphone is working. Can you hear me?
yeah, it will that's better than nothing. So I think we can go from there.
And why don't we test the other mic?
Sure, can anybody hear me?
Yeah, that's fine.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that should be okay.
Stay close to your microphones, please. No, I switched yours, so that should have.
Okay. All right, well, we'll check back again and please let us know. Are there other comments in public?
I have one comment.
Okay, we want to be able to hear you. What mic can you?
I tried this one on for.
I'll pull it out.
You can just hold the whole thing.
And for Dwyer, full-time resident. And I just wanted to bring up a concern regarding retention of employees. I've noticed that there's a lot of long-time full-time employees here at the KMPUD who have left recently in the last few years, and would encourage the board to look and see what is pushing people to leave and what we can do to encourage better retention. People, especially a lot of people with a lot of knowledge that we're seeing in our community.
Thank you. Any other?
John. I know. Good to see you.
John Ryder, General Manager of Kirkwood Property Services. We manage 10 or 11 of the major HOAs here in the Valley, including the Kirkwood Community Association. I just really wanted to briefly make sure the board's aware as we do navigate through Measure E and some additional costs that are proposed in that measure. The Valley is taking a beating financially that we see in our HOAs, between utilities and snow removal with the big year. And then now with insurance, probably the board is aware through your own properties, insurance has gotten absolutely insanely costly if you can get it. So just wanted to make the board aware that if you hear rumors of some financial issues and HOA struggling, kind of made it's not false narrative. It's true. This is becoming very expensive. There's probably some sentiment at times that, well, Kirkwood's got a lot of money and people have a lot of money, but some don't, and some didn't get wealthy by throwing good money at bad. Some of these we probably can't get around, but I just thought it was important to share my perspective of what I'm seeing at the HOAs that we manage, and some real financial pain that's really starting to manifest itself. So anyway, I would also like to say thanks for all you do on getting through the epic, I'll say epic winter.
John, your point is well made and totally agree.
With regards to homeowners insurance, have who are having trouble, have they brought to their providers' attention that we're part of the Firewise community?
Yeah, we're pushing that heavily because we talked to numerous brokers. The industry is just very confused right now. There's a lot of main players who pulled out of California in general, not just Kirkwood. And yep, the fire is helping anything, and we've had Firewise come make presentations and make sure the insurance folks know that we're participating. They think it will ultimately have some positive impact. We probably haven't seen it quite yet. Most of the brokers we talk to and directly or insurance agents feel that the pain of the current state of the industry is going to be here for probably another year, and then maybe change in a positive way after that. So we're keeping our fingers crossed, but the Firewise, I think, certainly doesn't hurt, and I believe it has helped.
Doing things. Otherwise, community, some of them are here, and I don't think that started.
One thing I'd like to make sure people are aware of is the California FAIR plan. That the last result. And many people are experiencing double or triple, quadruple.
So moving on to number 6, written comments from the public. I just want to acknowledge that we received written comments of the middle of packets and Carrie in the chat and Greg Hansen. And also this morning, Will and Pepper submitted comments. That those will be included in the global opportunity. I just want to use this opportunity to respond to them, and just want to make clear that I plan on scheduling a discussion at the next board meeting for the community to discuss options for the future of the current budget. And that meeting is one to inform and discuss and listen. That there would be no decisions made at that meeting, but have an opportunity to understand a couple of things. And I'm going to focus on 3 areas. I'm open to others. The first is the level of service. Make sure people understand what the current level of service, what we have available and what we don't have available. And then what are other levels of service that could be provided, and what are the costs and the community inputs on what's the minimum level of service that people want to see for both fire and emergency medical. Secondly, is in terms of the fire service fee, they consider a 218 process to revise the current square footage based usage. That was that number of 4 cents per square foot was written in 1990. It's never been changed. So consider that, and also to look at what the revenue sources are available and how should we think about that if any become available. The third area is the role of volunteers in terms of how we're recruiting, the level of training and certifications instead. In particular, I think people need to understand that in a structure, we need 4 certified firefighters to enter the building. There's been times in the past where employees and volunteers did it on their own, and we don't want to encourage that, and we don't want to create a support. So we're putting people at this. So the role of volunteers and so So my suggestion is we would schedule this at the next board meeting. However, when we get to item 15 at the end of this meeting for open, unless propose a special meeting. That would be the time. And I so I do want to thank
If you guys could basically almost put your mouths on those mics, that's going to be, I think, key. Yeah, John, did you hear any of that? You said it was garbled. I don't know how much you heard.
Mostly not. It sounds underwater for the most part.
I will repeat it if you want. Can you hear this, John?
Barely. Doug, I think you probably have the same experience, right? Everybody that's probably on Zoom is probably barely here.
Yeah, I'm having the same experience as John.
Can you hear me?
I don't think it's a speaker issue. I think it's a soundboard or something issue. It's microphone array.
Yeah. The board's all maxed out, so everything's, the microphones are reading to the board, so.
Microphones are reading.
Yeah.
Well, we do have an option. I can take this laptop over there. I don't know what else I
Not
can
a
do.
bad idea.
That's a good best idea so far.
Okay. Yeah, or I can just come to you. It's either or. Let me, how much can I disconnect? Because I'm connected to the screen. So how about if the board wants to speak, they're just gonna have to, or you guys can all just group around here. That might be your best bet. I believe so. Why don't all of you just come sit close?
Yeah, Eric, you're crystal clear.
It's kind of because it's feeding through my microphone, not through this thing. One more thing.
One more Hail Mary.
You can all gather. I mean, you can sit around the same table. Unless you got the vids.
Okay, so I'm just speaking to at your computer.
Yes, just talk normal.
Just acknowledge you can hear me.
Much better. Thank you.
That's okay. All right. Let me start over. We're on. We're nothing if not flexible. So let me just start with item 6 and finish up on that, and then you'll adjust the camera, Chris.
Can't get around the TV, so they're not gonna be able to see you. They'll just be able to hear you.
Oh, okay.
It's just gonna aim at the TV. Just leave it, Chris. They can hear. They can hear. No, please, no. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't need something else breaking.
So I just want to start over again. So in terms of written comments, we received thoughtful comments from Carrie Luchak, Greg Hansen, and Dolan Becker. Dolan's arrived this morning, so it's not in the board packet, but will be included at the next opportunity. So I want to respond to the 3 of them. They all had comments about about the fire department. And I just want to say that I will schedule a discussion for the next board meeting for the community to discuss options for the future of the Kirkwood Fire Department budget. That meeting will not be one where decisions are made, but rather there'll be a chance to inform, to listen, and to discuss options. And the options that I see organizing are around three things. First is the level of service. I want to make sure people understand what the current level of service is for the fire department, and what are possible additional levels of service, and what are the associated requirements for each one and the cost of each one, so we can have a discussion about what's the level of service that matches a mixture of what we want and what we can afford. Secondly, in terms of the fire service fee, consideration of starting a 218 process that would allow us to revise the current fire service assessment, which was established as 4 cents per square foot in 1998 and was never changed. Also to consider a revenue mix from different sources if they should become available. And third, the role of volunteers, both how they're recruited, the level of training, certifications are required to enter buildings, and scheduling. So my plan would be to put this at the next scheduled board meeting on June 9th. However, during the general discussion, item 15, if the board wants to consider a special meeting to be able to happen at an earlier date, then that would be the appropriate time to comment on this proposal and consider any other date changes. Was that all communicated this time?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, then we're ready to move on to the adoption of the consent calendar, which consists of approval of the special meeting minutes of April 3rd, consent for claims, receivables shut-off report, and reauthorizing AB 381. So is there a motion to
361.
361?
So moved.
Yeah, is there a motion?
motion.
All right, Doug moved. Is there a second?
Yeah, Dornberg, I'll second that.
Okay, Dornbuck second. All right,
Epstein,
aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Saranda,
Aye.
Thoreau,
Aye.
Dornberg, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay. So now we're ready to move on to item 9, which is the finances.
Since Dave is here and it's 8 minutes till 2:30 when we moved it, how about we go ahead and do it now?
That's a great
It's okay
idea.
with you.
Yeah. Okay, so as we mentioned in the item, we'll move snow removal budget and snow removal discussion, item 9F. We'll move it up to now that Dave is available and ran out of snow to move. Or maybe not. Oh, there's still some? Okay.
So just I'll kick off with the staff report. So just kind of giving the background of where we're at and where we're budgeting. So looking at our trackless machine age, we have 2 that are 20 years old. One's a little bit older and that because it became used. One that's 4 years old, one that's 18, one that's 9, and one that's 7. According to the manufacturer of this equipment, the average useful life is about 4,000 to 6,000 hours, which is about what we run in a 5-year period. So we've milked these for a long time, and thanks to our mechanics and staff, we've duct tape and baling wire and bubble gum, we've made it with what we have, but it's long exceeded useful life. One of the additional things in the budget is the proposal to buy a mid-size blower, which is similar to our RPM, which is the one that we use to clear most of the weight. This would be mounted on a loader, I think our 924, which is our smallest loader, but it would basically prevent us from having to use trackless machines to remove heavy weight off the sides of roads and preserve their life even further. In terms of contract changes, last year the board implemented HOA contracts, or 2 years ago we implemented HOA contracts, and we had 2 different models. One was either all the driveways in or some driveways in. This has created a lot of work for staff, and we recommend that we no longer offer that as an option. And then let's see here. One of the other things that we encountered this year, particularly this year, but it's not the first year we've encountered it, is storage areas. And as HOAs continue to build, or new subdivisions continue to build, or as infill happens, such as Sentinels West or Caples View, we continue to run out of snow storage area, and that's only going to get worse. So we need to incorporate into the contract what happens when we run out of snow storage. And district council has already reviewed and revised the contract to account for that. In terms of labor, we, as the board recalls, we significantly increased the labor rates for snow removal operators this year. And even with that, we weren't fully staffed until end of December, beginning of January. Okay. And then so proposing cost saving measures, trying to lower the budget because it's, you know, it's very high and we understand that it's a big hit for everyone. We laid off almost all of our snow removal. We have one seasonal left. Since we have snow this week, it's a good thing. We propose that we leave the snow stakes up this year like we did about 3 years ago as another cost savings measure. And then we recommend that if we have specific issues, administrative staff time spent on specific issues to specific HOAs, they are billed for that time and it's not spread across HOAs that aren't taking that level of effort. Right now, it looks like we're going to finish the year between 150 and 200,000 worse than budget in the red, which will mean another interfund loan from electric. I included, just to put it in there, I included a 5-year repayment window that obviously could be changed by the board to lessen the impact or spread it out over more time. And I also included 3-year loans at 8% interest, which is similar to what we had on the last trackless purchases. Again, we could look at a longer term period to again spread the costs over there as well. And we used a 5-year average for most categories in the budgeting process. So with that, I don't know, Dave, do you want to just kind of talk about the year for a bit, or and then we'll
Why doesn't he sit?
Yeah, why don't you come over here, Dave, because this is the only microphone working. You can have my chair. You can stay on.
Should we put on your camera?
No, it wouldn't matter because it's.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, Dave, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your work.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, it's a challenging winter, as every winters are, in lots of different ways. Equipment, staffing, everything. You know, it's not the first big winter or difficult winter that the resort or the PUD has been through. So hopefully lessons that have been learned will be continued. I like to just start by saying, I mean, no matter what theory you have in snow removal on small years, average years, or big years, it takes 2 key components to accomplish snow removal. And one of them is running equipment. And one of them.
It's not this mic. Just sit closer to the computer. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry
just
about
be
that.
closer to the computer. Thanks. Okay.
Just saying, you know, 2 key components to running snow removal in any season up here is running equipment, which is key, and trained employees to run them. Without those 2 key components, no matter what your theory on how you're going to accomplish it, you will not be able to accomplish it. I think the district has done fairly well about keeping equipment. Obviously, people are looking at the hours on these machines. I think the mechanics and people have done a great job on keeping these there, but there needs to be a better theory on keeping equipment in better shape and newer. The older they get, the more they break down. And then having trained employees to run them is very key component too. And when I say employees and trained, I mean actually trained. People that don't start in November and have a short window to learn. It takes a very long time to learn snow removal, all the different patterns, we do a lot of condos, snow storages, very particular and unique, every one of them. So having trained employees that know the contracts and returning employees. You know, the last 4 or 5 years, we haven't been able to retain employees after we train them for a year. Some of the things are they're actually going into other positions in the PUD, which is nice because we've done a good job of getting good people, but then, you know, they're offered other full-time jobs, which snow removal does not present. So people that are in these seasonal jobs that get laid off all the time are taking full-time jobs instead of staying with the department where we've spent a lot of time and energy training them. So hopefully we can get back to retaining employees, and part of that is actually paying them more. And I know the district did really well this year. They upped the wage from the last couple years and then still had a lot of problems getting people. And trained operators that can run equipment in the past are pretty important also. The last 4 years we've gotten, with pandemic and shortages of everything, we've hired chefs, we've hired all these different people that have no clue on how to run equipment and to do snow removal. And we do the best job. I think we have a pretty good training program to get people up to speed, but once again, it comes down to, it takes a very long time. I mean, the first season, if you can not break anything, do a lot of damage and snow comes out of the chute, you're probably doing pretty well. And that's the importance of returning employees and paying them enough to get them to keep coming back. The money you save in training alone of people that have knowledge from previous years makes up for a lot of money we spend in training every year, and then they don't know as much. So, I mean, I would say that retaining employees that are trained is very important, and having running equipment is a very key component to doing snow removal, and especially this valley. So hopefully things can continue getting better on that side of things. But like I said, a lot of difficulties. I mean, I think some HOAs and stuff, I mean, a lot of people complain about the cost of snow removal, but there's lots of little details in snow removal that aren't getting done, like subdivisions on big storms like we had this year, marking cars. We used to go out and mark cars because it's very difficult in blizzards for operators who are in a blizzard and a snow machine that's fogging up to start with. And then you have just mountains of snow and you can't even tell where a car is parked or what is going on. It slows the operations down. And that shouldn't be absorbed by the PUD. That should be absorbed by the associations of taking care of their own associations, marking things better, giving the operators a better chance of not doing damage and being more efficient would be a big help on the snow removal side of things, I think.
Dave, let me ask you a question about snow storage
Mm-hmm.
and what happened this year, and just any comments you have on that.
I mean, I don't think you ever run out of snow storage. I mean, there's plenty of places to put snow, but things get smaller. On a big year like this, I mean, your roads may not be stake to stake. You may be in a couple feet because you have to put it somewhere. So, I mean, things just get skinnier, things get smaller. Hopefully at times of year like this, the solar plow comes out and saves everybody a little money and starts melting it back. But I mean, a couple feet here or there, I mean, really doesn't impede driving. It doesn't impede a lot of things. I mean, driveways and parking pads are very important, to get people off the roads, get them into their driveways, to be able to do it. But I mean, I don't think you ever run out of snow storage per se. It's just things get a little bigger and it just takes longer. When you get over 400 inches in a season, instead of putting it in the normal snow storage, you have to push it 300-400 feet farther to get it to an area where you can put it. And Eric was talking about just development and stuff. I mean, that makes a big key. The KMA West Side, Dangberg, in the last couple of years has built 2 houses up on the upper side, which changed all of snow removal for Dangberg. Those were huge. I mean, when you look at snow storage, you go, there's no house there, there's nothing there, I can put snow there. Sure, it's somebody's lot, but you have to put the snow somewhere. And that is getting less and less all the time. Driveways are being built, houses are being built, so it just takes longer to get the snow there, which is just going to make snow removal costs go up. I'm pretty sure the county, when they do their calculation on snow storage, I mean, it's really like 20% of snow storage, and Mother Nature usually takes that up to start with. I mean, there needs to be more thought process on snow storage in future building and when they're doing things. Like I said, just makes it more difficult, and costs are going to continue to go up as things get developed.
Thanks, Dave. Do you mind sticking around just in case any questions come up?
No, not a problem.
At least I have you for
Oh yeah.
45 more minutes.
Sure.
So before we get any further into that, would the board like to thank Dave for all his years of service?
Sure.
For sure.
That's when you do, actually, since you started with the RPM and the blade, I think it really improved operations and there was many years of good services.
All years. Difficult to be in comfort. I've lived in Turkey for 39 years and stopped signing in. I think at this point, there's only 3 people that have been in here longer. Peter Bowenworth being one of them, Frank Watford, and Bob Lever. It's difficult to live in Kirkwood and persevere through all the elements and all the challenges. Thank you.
I assume people couldn't hear what the question and response just now.
They can all, oh. Yes, but it's not on this topic. I'll get to it under general. There was a question about the date of the meeting.
No, I'm saying Bertrand offered a thank you.
Oh.
And they've responded, and I'm sure no one could hear it.
Oh, Dave couldn't hear it. Yes. Or they couldn't hear Dave. Yes, probably true. Sorry, Dave. He says that's okay.
You get to spend more quality time with Mocha.
Quality time in life.
Yeah, so it's closer to the microphone.
If we have anything for him, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Or discussion, I guess. What do you want to do?
Okay, so there's several proposed changes in policy for snow removal. And there's the question of the capital budget. So
Let me start there. Let's start on capital budget.
Sure.
This is the proposed capital budget. I'm gonna have to hide this. So we ordered a trackless on July 1st after the budget was approved this fiscal year, and we still haven't received it. So I'm anticipating payment for that trackless will occur this next fiscal year. So this $200,000 is the existing order of the McLean. We talked about the mid-size blower, $215,000 already. Everything else for the most part is repairs and standard O&M on our equipment.
Can I ask a question first on this equipment?
Yes.
So I see that we had 2003.
But people can't.
No, they can hear him from here. You're hearing, Doug, are you hearing Bertrand? Yes, I'm getting nods.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you.
So T1 and T2 was
Yes.
both purchased 2003. One was used, one was new, and then they are both 20 years old. So
Yes.
this is a demo thing, or how did it happen? Because if they are both the same age, but one was used, one is new, it was a brand new system that we bought initially.
Yes, one of the tracklesses was purchased used from the equipment supplier and one was purchased new.
Almost used. Okay.
Yes. It had 60 hours on it, Dave?
Yeah.
64 hours.
So the plan is to replace one of those. That's what the 200K is.
Yes,
Okay, which one is that T1 or T2?
that will be up to the snow removal supervisor.
Okay.
And then we save the old ones and scavenge them for parts.
Oh.
T1 or T2, which one are we replacing first, do you think? If you were still in charge next year and not retiring on me, you big jerk. If you had to pick one. So T1 is what we would replace. And this is already ordered, by the way. It's not a new order. It's just the timing of the invoice hitting will be next fiscal year. So we didn't pay 200,000 was budgeted this current fiscal year. It's going to hit next fiscal year. Yes. Yes, sir.
Trackless will be by a different manufacturer?
Yes, McLean. Schaefer no longer provides, and Doug or Dave, if you want to come talk on this, but if I get it wrong, Schaefer is no longer providing California compliant equipment
Okay.
that meets our needs. So we have to switch to a new manufacturer. Yes, Dave agrees. Yes.
Do we have any record of this new manufacturer's performance from any, or we just don't have any options?
I'll sit there. You can say.
No, this microphone travels nicely. Can you hear Peter okay, Doug? Just give me a thumbs up. Could you, yeah, thumbs up. So if you can hear Peter, we're all fine.
All right.
No, I mean, we've done some research on the McLean's 5, 6 years ago. We had them up here and we test drove them. And Joe P and I both think it's a better way. They're actually a bigger horsepower. The Tractus, or they're saying that they're a T4, but they're actually downsizing the horsepower on them. So they're only about 80 to 90 versus what we have now. So they're downgrading them to fit into the compliance, where the McLean's are actually more powerful. And I mean, there's always going to be goods and bads of both of them, but I mean, they're very user friendly. I think it's a better machine. They use them over on the North Shore in Truckee. There's fleets of them over there. And we've met with those people over there also who we ordered them through. Better service than we've been getting from Tractus and Schaefer. So, I mean, I think it's, as in the future, it's a better product that we'll be able to get service. We'll be able to get things like that for. And I think it's a more usable machine, like Eric said, for our needs than where Tractus is going with their new machines.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but we are having to order parts out of Canada for trackless, and we are the largest trackless fleet in the United States with our 6. So maybe we'll go with a bigger company.
How are they for windshield?
Probably even a little bit better than their cabs are really a little bit better designed for vision and for fogging.
That was an issue with the Tractuses.
Right, just the vision, especially when you're looking out the back, turning around, which hopefully operators are doing. But no, I mean, as in doing research, and Joe Pellerin is running Tractus. He's our best Tractus operator out there. He has run them and he's looked at them and he feels that that is the best machine, and I agree with him.
Availability is there.
Yes, with parts and stuff.
Availability, we ordered it July 1st, so I'll let you be the judge of that, but it is coming. It was at some point, so.
And just in terms of repairs and parts, so how available are they? I mean, it sounds like they're up on the north side. So, I mean, are we going to have an easier time getting parts, do you imagine, and getting someone who can repair these machines?
I'm not quite sure. I know they have some mechanics and stuff over there, and they came up here, their head mechanic that helps design everything for their machines. They're really kind of a family operated. They're a really good team. And when they came out and met with us about parts and availability and service, they felt like they'd be able to provide that for us when needed.
And is there any reason to potentially buy? I mean, I guess it feels like we're switching kind of providers, right? We have machines that we can scavenge from the T1 that goes down, but those aren't going to be valuable for this new machine. I'm just wondering, is there, in terms of how we get parts, and if we're making a concerted switch over, should we be like pre-ordering and storing some crucial parts that might be hard to get in a winter? And is that easier or harder to do with these new types of machines or anything like that?
No, it's the same. And that's been the theory for the trackless machines we have also, is trying to look at, PTO shafts, things that go down on a common time, and keep more of them in stock in Kirkwood should be the theory, because when the roads close and things break, you don't need to be driving to get it. So, I mean, a bigger supply. I know, 7, 8 years ago, whatever, we used to keep more parts in stock for those cases. But yeah, I mean, those are things that we'll have to get in stock, and hopefully the new machines don't have near as many problems. But yes, normal breakage items like that, there's lists on them and you stock up on those things. Normal theory in any piece of equipment up here in Kirkwood.
Any other questions on the capital budget?
Questions or comments?
Just on the capital budget for now. Yeah.
The only other one I had would be to consider a longer time frame for the debt and repayment.
That's on the operational budget. Yeah, definitely.
So just the capital
Just the
expenditure.
capital for the
Yeah,
moment.
so in this case, I had a question trying to understand
We'll get to that, Bertrand, definitely.
about the trackless replacement. And so the mid-size blower would be which brand? Chauffeur C also?
Who's making the mid-size blower?
Getting a mid-size blower.
I think they're still looking at the two. One of them's an RPM style, which is what we have, which would be going down the same road. The other one is a LaRue. which the resort ran this year. I know some other companies run them. We've actually looked into LaRue's in the past also. And it's a mid-sized blower, would help relieve the track resistance. And that's one of the problems is they should be doing driveways and parking paths, not sides of the roads. But that means you have to have enough operators and stuff to run both. So, I mean, staffing is going to be very key, but having that mid-sized blower, it would run on our 924G loader, which is a very good machine, but in bigger storms and stuff, it's a little undersized to do stuff. So it would make it a lot more usable machine that would help out. I think it's a good theory.
And less usable in terms of pushing with the blade for those that aren't,
Right.
because it's got less power. So the brand is not set in stone yet. We have a quote for one. We're getting a quote for another. And we have a quote for the RPM, but not for the LaRue, I believe. Or I think we have the LaRue then. Okay. So, yeah.
My other capital expenditure question would be on the EV track that's scheduled not for this fiscal year, I mean, this coming fiscal year, and but the following one.
Yes.
Which point do you have in mind?
I will take whatever's available, to be honest with you, because right now I've been on CARB, the fleet rules that CARB just made, and the availability of light duty trucks. We're going to start competing with every utility and government in California. The backlog on Rivians, I think right now is 14 months is what the ARB director said. So we'll have to get our order in early.
So what I have wanted to mention is currently it's very difficult to get a Ford 150 Lightning extended range, but it's actually very easy to get very quick the standard range, and it actually for the kind of use for here, and it's much cheaper too. So I will really recommend. Actually, my neighbor is waiting for F-150, and he was called by the dealer because nobody wants
the short range.
So
that's good to know.
If we look at it,
because we have some that are coming up this year too. So this one doesn't really matter because hopefully supply chain will get fixed. But for the other departments, when we go to the other capital,
So I would recommend actually looking at Ford 150 standard range because they are discounting them, no market premium, and also on. So yeah.
Excellent. Good to know. And we're probably one of the few people that could use them. Anything else on capital? Doug, John? So maybe we should call for a motion to approve the capital so I have something set in stone to start building the rest.
Yeah, so is there a motion to approve the capital budget for snow removal?
Now that doesn't, I don't know about contract changes.
That's separate. We'll come to that. This is just approving the capital budget.
Okay.
My only concern of doing moving on that now before we discuss operation, and because actually I do have a concern that we are jumping from 700 to 1 million in one shot, and so I feel a bit not at ease to approve. Why I'm okay with this, with the various items proposed. I'm concerned that if we approve that, then we're going to be stuck when we try to see if we can modify slightly the general budget, which is because it does include the capital. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean. My recommendation is this is the capital that we need to continue operations. We can discuss how to minimize its impact cost.
Okay.
But I don't think we can get away with less than this and operate.
That's really the question. Either we're doing this or we're cutting something out. So tell me what we're cutting out or what we're doing. Because the board could always do it later too. We could approve it now and then say, never mind, don't buy the mid-size blower. Could do that later.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. You know, if I mean, statistically, we should not have 700 inches next year.
Statistically.
Statistically, I mean, look at the record all the way back down.
Yeah.
They are never twice in a row.
So I disagree with that.
Anyway,
so we've got to be moving faster on this meeting.
Anyway, so that's my concern is we are committing to something that maybe we should actually delay by a year or something like that.
When we actually place the order, it comes back to the board, doesn't it?
No, if it's a budgeted item, it would not. If it was higher than the budget amount, it would for sure.
just so you guys need to start buying equipment and getting it now because you're falling way behind. And the more you sit here and talk about it and don't approve it and get things moving, you're making more mistakes. And it doesn't matter if it's a 700-inch year or a 250-inch year, you need to upgrade the staffing, the equipment, and it needs to be done now. That would be my opinion.
No, I don't disagree, but the fact is that now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trackless, 1 RPM, how many blades? 1 blade, 2, 3 blades?
Yeah, but you can't run them all at one time. The RPM takes up one machine. When that RPM runs, that takes up one.
So anyway, we do have much more than we used to have 20 years ago.
That's counting these numbers as in 6 tracklesses. We haven't had 6 tracklesses in 4 years. We start the year, Christmas party, people like, oh, we have 6 tracklesses, they give us 1 storm. We were down to 3. We've been down to like 2 and 3 tracklesses for 3+ years. So this number 6 isn't a real number.
Okay.
We
So
need equipment and people.
that's a surprise to me because we have a mechanical on site.
Yeah, we don't have a night crew. We used to run a night crew all the time. Night crew used to help out the mechanics because one mechanic can't fix this fleet of machines of the heavy equipment and the vehicles that we have. That's why we used to run a night crew. They welded on chains. They help with the mechanic to do the things, to keep up on things. One mechanic cannot keep up on all the things that happen.
Okay, as I said, I'd be happy to go along with that proposed capital expenditures, with the caveat that we need to have a discussion at the general budget.
Okay.
And timing need to be potentially adjusted.
Okay, so are you moving to?
Yeah.
Good. Okay,
Okay, we're trying to move to
Okay.
accept the capital budget.
okay, I'll second.
And Epstein seconded.
Okay.
Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Pizzaranda,
Hi.
Rowe.
Aye.
Robert, aye, it's unanimous.
Did you have a,
I have a question about how come we don't have a night crew anymore?
We don't have what?
well, we don't have it. We have,
It is staffing levels. I mean, in the last 4+ years, it's been very difficult to get operators that you could run that on, and you have to have trained operators. You can't just put people out there on night crew that don't know the commercial. Commercial is the most difficult thing that we do out there, and you have to have people that know those contracts specifically. And it just, like I said, we've been hiring chefs and stuff. I mean, we really haven't staffed well and been able to maintain properly trained people to actually have a night crew.
2 months ago, Rick Ansel told me in an operations committee that we were running.
we have,
We did, but we started them late. Like this year, I mean, we couldn't get enough staffing and people in here. I mean, we were already in a hole before we even started night crew. I mean, from day one, there should be a night crew that runs to help facilitate everything. It takes a lot of time. I mean, you don't have people on the RPM blowing the sides of the road because they're down in the commercial blading because you don't have a night crew. So, I mean, that's why I talk about trained operators and running equipment.
I'm just, 2 months ago, I assumed we were running a night crew because Rick told me we were running.
Oh, we have been.
We were running a night crew. Rick told you the truth.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on because I asked a question and
No,
He says we haven't had it the whole time.
No, it's been very sporadic on getting people, but once we were able to hire people this year, I mean, it was not the beginning of the season, but we did run a night crew this year. But we were in a bit of a hole at that point to start with.
the same capacity as,
What's that?
not in the same capacity as 10 years ago where they were helping with mechanic.
You know, I mean, everything's changed, budgeting, you know, which is part of the issues. Yes, that's part of the issues is just overall budgeting and bringing people on too late. When we start people in November, it's too late to actually train people and get people going, so.
Once you see, what do you think the couple tough challenges are of getting people hired is on a smaller scale perceived?
You gotta pay more to get real equipment operators. You can't pay them like a lift off from Kirkwood who shows up and has no responsibilities, that doesn't get their schedule changed every week from days. They get asked to come in at 4 o'clock and work long shifts and stuff. You need to pay people more to get real operators that want to run equipment, not somebody that's in between jobs, cooking food, that wants to come run a loader or a tractor because they have nothing else to do. We need real operators that want to work and know how to operate. Would be my
Are you
thought.
able to offer these housing?
We do have housing, yes.
Sorry, are we talking about operational budget now, or because I feel like
We're
I
about
thought we were
ready
also
to
on.
transition, but there's a couple.
These questions are about operations, right? So are we-
Yeah, so maybe we'll
so
just
I feel like
call for the vote and then we'll finish up in that. Oh, we did. Okay.
we did. I thought so. Like, let's talk about operations so that we can talk about
So,
operations because
just-
there are a lot of questions that
Just
are.
for those of you who couldn't hear John Ryder's question, it was what's changed, I think, was, and what we need to do. And I think one of the other things that really changed is we used to have a lot of logging people here that could run equipment and didn't have anything to do in the winter.
I don't think it was just more people that wanted to live in Kirkwood. I don't think any of them were actually dirt equipment people. They were just skiers that were groomers, people that wanted to be in Kirkwood, actually. A little bit more of a community back in the day than there is now, unfortunately.
Operational. So this is, like, again, maybe we'll just top into the discussion. I know Bertrand had questions on operational.
Yeah, I have a few questions / comment. So we actually, last bigger season, not as big as last winter, we had concern with snow operation, and I don't know if Eric Rickard is part of the attendee of the meeting or not, but basically he spent a lot of time trying to reinforce the snow removal department. And then we did a 5-year budget like we do for projections. And the number was 680, about 700 if you include everything. And we have been running for multiple years with that number. And that number is supposed to take care of the various capital expenditure we need to do and program, and also some variability in the snow years. And that's why we like to take 5 years. Actually, I remember last year we had a discussion, and I was advocating that we would move progressively from 3 years to 5 years for the operation for the HOA allocations. And Eric was actually not on this opinion. I do think that 5 years is a better mean of averaging differences across year.
Just can I respond real quick, Bertrand? This is a 5-year average. This is not a 3. It goes back 5 years. You can't see the formulas behind it, but on the HOA allocations, you're absolutely right. This is a 5-year.
That's correct. But my point here is last year, when we talked budget, I was concerned because we were not going to pay back the loan because finally we wanted to purchase a new trackless. And I raised the concern that we should raise the snow removal budget so we actually could keep our commitment on paying back the loan, and we did not. So the bottom line is now we have a huge step to go on between what we were projecting for 2024. Before that was also 680, and we are coming up at 970. So my concern is this is actually a 42.86% increase. And I really think when we do budget, and that's my concern when I see this budget, I think we are repeating the same mistakes that we had for these 5 years at 680, and now we have 5 years at 970. I mean, I'm excluding KMPUD from that. Yeah. And I think we need to do probably a better job so we don't have at this projections, so we don't have again the same issues of big steps happening to us again. So that's my main concern here. And again, the idea is to be able to spread the CapEx on multiple years and allow for sufficient variability in the snow, so we don't get this bad surprise that we have this year. One of the things that it does, it also gives predictability for HOAs, so they can budget, because the problem is HOA need to budget now, and the snow season is not even over. And so and so I would encourage to have a budget that is a bit more forward thinking, so we can actually, because the way I see it now, it's just it doesn't look real to me that you have such a budget. It clearly didn't work last time because we are under this year.
There's a few things you can adjust in here easily. But you heard from Dave that we're not paying enough. So salaries and wages, in theory, if we want some improvement on that end, should go up, not down. The interfund loan payback, the board could elect to defer those repayments longer or over a longer period. I would note that the first two, the 41,500 and the estimated 69,000 are due in those respective years under the current loan terms. The board could change that to a new, or change the loan terms because they set them, but those are due. But if you look down here, we could assume instead of a 3-year loan on large equipment, we could do a longer term loan. Instead of repaying back the new $177,000 estimated loan over 5 years, you could pay it longer. It just it continues to kick the can down the road. And as Dave mentioned, I mean, we should be replacing 2 tracklesses now, not 1. But everything we push down, we kick it. And so those are options of things you could look at to change in this budget.
John or Doug, do you want to offer any comments? I think John, Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some of the things I'm questioning, slightly different. I mean, I understand the things that were just said, and I have mixed thoughts on that in terms of who pays for what, when, and kicking cans further down the roads and things like that. I think, I don't know, I can come back to that, but I guess the one thing I want to talk about is, I guess, the salary and wages, and I think Dave, you talked about, and I think I couldn't quite, I think I heard some of the questions maybe that were about the night crews and things like that, and I'm just kind of curious about what we can do. Can we have like retention bonuses? Like, would that help? Or like, not just salary, like how can we retain good people? Because it sounds like we're having a lot of trouble finding people to get here early enough to train them to be well enough, and then spending a lot of time to try to train them. And then that's a one-time deal. I mean, it sounds like a lot of conversation, like the fire department and volunteers and things like that. There's a lot of upstart cost associated with folks. So how can we better retain the people that we have, and what will that cost us, and how do we find better people in terms of recruitment, or like what are the things that we need to do on the salary and wages side of this to provide a better level of service? Because I still think even with all of this money that we're going to potentially increase, I feel like the community probably would say that we got frustrated emails that their driveways weren't plowed, and I get that, but it's crazy season. But like, how can we improve our level of service? What do we have to do in terms of the people side of this? And what kind of shifts do we have to, how do we get these people recruited, stay on? Are there opportunities to have people as full-time positions that do something else in the summers that are with the district somehow? I'm just trying to think creatively of how can we do an improved effort on salary and wages here to keep people that we need to be able to doing this job.
John, comments?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on this is, I think, management's got to present the budget request for salary and wages that are going to provide the staff to provide good service levels for snow removal. So, if 259 isn't the right number, we need to be told what the right number is, right? Or if it's night crews, the other things that are discussed. I do think it's a shock to the system to bump from 700,000 to $1 million. That's a big increment. I think probably most of the HOAs, half their HOA budget is snow removal. So it's a real big impact that would probably cause increases in the HOA fees. And so I think we need to consider, do we want to take some actions like do longer term leases or terms on capital equipment purchases? Do we want to look at the interfund loan payments to try to smooth out that transition? So to kind of summarize, I think I'd like to see us soften the blow of bump from 700,000 to $1 million. And then secondly, assure us that 259 is the right number to be able to staff and be able to be successful next year.
Okay, thanks. I just want to comment that the actual budget is 213, not 259. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
yeah.
sorry. 213. I was looking at the wrong column. You're right.
I'd like to make two suggestions on this, and then maybe possibly we can move on. The first would be is to ask, make sure that the salary and wage request here is what we want to do and whatever. And then secondly, to work with finance, and the main number we can adjust here is the capital and interest expense. It assumes an 8% loan with a 3-year amortization schedule. We could use the line of credit. We could spread out the payments. I agree with John that, and you know what we heard earlier from John Ryder is there's a lot of stress here, and so spreading out the growth of this amount by spreading out the debt may be the right thing to do to benefit all the HOAs. So I think looking at those two things before we see a final budget is what I would recommend.
Do you want to defer?
Yeah, I don't think we're in a position to approve any of the operating budgets. We're just reviewing where we are from a policy viewpoint and giving feedback. And I would look to approve them if they're ready at the June meeting, and worst case, the July meeting. But we're just trying to give guidance right now.
Yeah, because the year-end actuals, just to add on to that, the year-end actuals, that loan that I'm guessing is 177,223. I'm probably a little bit too granular. That's going to change because there's an estimated how much labor we had in there. So the operational won't be dealt with until we get to really to the end, because there'll be a lot of things changing. Capital, on the other hand, I need to start preparing, start getting work, purchase orders in. Because as we saw with the McLean, we put it in July 1st, literally after the board adopted the budget, and I still don't have it. So those are some things that I'd like to at least get a PO issued if I think this is going to proceed. So on capital for that aspect, that helped me. So I can certainly go back and, I can look at the Caltrans prevailing wage rate and see what, loader operators make. I'm going to guess it's probably around $63 an hour. Where now we're paying the top end of 30. So, there's going to be some sticker shock. I'm just preparing the board. If that's the level you want, I will bring back those suggestions. But at some point, we're going to have to do a realistic. We're not going to hire a seasoned CAD operator from Tykert who's laid off for the winter because they make more money on unemployment than they would make with us.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Two questions.
Hey, Amfler, would you mind just
Sorry,
you can just stand right there and talk on top. And Doug will give me a thumbs up if he can hear you.
You good? Can you hear me, Doug? Okay, first question is, it was mentioned that last year you decided to put off paying for one of the loans to buy a trackless, but that trackless sounds like hasn't been purchased or bought yet. Is that money just kind of sitting there waiting to pay for that?
No, no, the budget we're over budget.
Okay, so that money's gone. The loan hasn't been paid for. Trackless hasn't been purchased.
Correct.
Got it. The second thing I want to say is, as far as salary goes, I think it's really important to pay employees a good salary, but I also think that we can't just throw money at problems constantly. That's not the solution to everything. And that work culture is really important, and that, referring back to my original public comment from the very beginning, taking a look at work culture from the top down, how can we be more supportive and make people feel more welcome? Because that has a big impact on whether people want to stay at a job or not. Money doesn't buy everything.
Yeah. Okay, so is there consensus?
Yeah, I have another point I'd like to make.
Okay.
It's related to the GNA. So I know we are going to discuss GNA before, and we have not.
Yeah,
but I
and
noticed that we had an increase in GNA for snow removal.
We did.
And that's one of the things that actually costs more money. And then my question is, what's the basis on increasing the SR share of the GNA by 1.1%?
Because we're spending more time in snow removal than we are in water, and the allocations were
So it's
incorrect.
just based on time.
It's just based on how,
by the employees.
mostly the administration and
Yeah.
it's their general where we're at on the administrative side, not so much the labor side.
Dropping.
'Cause this year it was really high because there was just so much,
It's dropping from
Yeah,
231 to
because-
195.
Yeah,
but it did get increased by 1.1.
The percentage got increased.
it does increase. So that's then it just
Yeah,
follow.
okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Um,
Okay.
Yeah, so in general, I don't think we need to ramping up would be making it easier for the community.
Yeah, and we'll bring back with all the, I mean, I'm waiting in case there's more suggestions, but from what I've heard, there's a few things I can look at to try and defer debt and push it out further down the road. That's
That's the only
that's
real.
the only real thing we can do. Or, I mean, well, that's the only real thing that we can do.
So one more question on equipment. So when you get an extra machine, the mid-size loader or whatever you call it, a blower, do we get another headcount, or it's just the same headcount for more machine? How that works?
It's the same machine. It's one of our three loaders.
One of our loaders that we
Instead of having a blade on it, it would have the blower.
currently you have 2 loaders,
3.
3 loaders. So, and they are,
Two big loaders and one smaller loader.
okay.
That was really purchased for commercial area.
Yeah.
Because it's tighter, can turn faster and can operate down there. But except one of the biggest problems is when you run that RPM, which it needs to run way more than it does, because that's the savior to what we do in the machines. When you put that on one of the bigger machines, you only have one big machine to do the west side, the east side and stuff. So I mean, that's why we ended up purchasing the GC, because the F was our biggest machine, and you get over a foot or 2 of snow, it's either got a blade or an RPM on it, and the RPM needs to run, so nothing got bladed. So that's where we're falling behind, is that RPM needs to be married to a machine and still have enough loaders to blade, bucket, and do the other things while that thing is running.
You're leaving a blower on it full time.
No, but I mean, should it? Yes, because it would save a lot. I mean, that's how you move snow. Your snow storage is only as far as you throw it. If you're throwing it in the tractors, besides they throw it a long way, it's only throwing it here. You throw it with the RPM. Your snow storage is a lot bigger, a lot farther, and it needs to run in the. Every season needs to be prepared like it's a big year, not a small year, and everybody's been leaning more and more to thinking every year is going to be a 200-inch year. You need to start out thinking that it's a big year, push the snow as far out so the bank's so big, because when the bank gets 20 feet tall, you can't blow over it. So you need to start by running things and running it right to get it out and away, so then you have more snow storage for big years like this year.
Sure.
Yeah, just totally agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
I have one more comment, which is operation that are really budget. You mentioned the concern about people not taking their car. I mean, I know at KMA, most people were doing it. There's always a few
Negative.
people that don't do it. But the fact is, we also asked people to move their car, but people could not move their car because we had no space on parking pad. So I just don't blame only the HOAs. I think the fact that KMPUD was not able to clear the parking pad in timely fashion, like we used to, within 24 hours, people could move their car to a new spot. People could not do that this year.
Well, they didn't stake their cars when they were buried for weeks at a time either.
There are
It's a
some-
buried car,
I
they need
agree.
to do it.
There are some, the HOA sent an email, I mean, conveyed the message that was coming from PUD to his membership. And I don't know for other membership HOAs, but I know for our one, but yeah.
People should maybe move to a parking pad that's cleared instead of feeling entitled that they have to park in the one closest to their house or in front of their house, because there were cleared parking pads, but they don't want to walk.
Listen, I have plenty example of that. During the big storm, the parking pad next to my cabin was full of cars from the wool Fremont. So people were doing that because that was the only parking pad that was clear. The reason it was clear is because you could blade it in through the storm, and the other one We're not blunt.
Ways on the left, parking pads on the right, nowhere to put snow.
Yep.
No one's helping.
Um,
My costs gonna go.
I want to pull the meeting back to the agenda. All right, so we have general direction in terms of
Yes.
the operating budget to look, to consider, verify the salary is what we want, and to look at debt repayments structures that would ease growing into the increase. Right, okay. All right, then there's a couple of suggested policy changes, and I want to seek board approval or comments on those. So first of all, there's two. The first, if we look at the total, this year, 128 of 133 driveways in Kirkwood were plowed. We're under contract to plow. There's a suggestion by staff that we just state that we either do all the driveways or none. And the reason for that is we're doing practically all of them anyway, and the overhead for staff to know which driveways to do or not do
We're
isn't.
talking about 5 driveways, KMA.
Yeah, that's the only difference, right?
Well, it's not in the CCNR, so HOA will not be able to force people to get, that we have to change the CCNR of
The bylaws.
KMA.
You have to
And the
change the
bylaws.
That was the issue that
Yeah.
this brings up, and I think it would be helpful, instead of trying to issue an ultimatum at this point, communicate with the KMA and see if they're willing to change their bylaws and how much money it would be. I mean, is it really worth it? 5 driveways, that's more volume. So that means we're gonna.
The problem this year is the 128, which driveways changed on a fairly often. Driveways are coming
They
in
went
and
back and
out,
forth,
back
you're
and forth.
Not during the season.
Yes, during the season.
Well, because it got heavy and they decided.
I don't know the reasons why. I just know that driveways came in and
Well,
out, and they weren't
actually,
defined at the start of the season. That's all.
I had advocated here at the district level and both at KMPUD level, that if people are not signed up by September 15 or 30 years, too bad, next year.
And see, that's what I
Boom.
would say, there should
Yeah.
just be a deadline.
Deadline.
If you don't sign
That's
the
simple.
deadline, you're done.
Absolutely.
And because how is the PUD
No
supposed to
changes or-
staff properly? to
See you
know what
next
you're
year.
gonna do if you don't even know what you're doing? So.
I just don't want to have a negative impact on the people that are paying. And my memory serves me right, at one point, if you know, driveways and garages were retrofitted in to KMA. And at one time, the bylaws said if you want to build driveway, you have to do it. I think that was a policy at one point.
Well, it's not at all in the
But it-
CNR, it's not in the guidelines
Well,
or whatever.
I think we need to communicate problems to KMA and see if they're willing to try to
agree.
resolve
I think
that
In the
in a
meantime, we
timely
should put a
manner.
deadline, there is no change after the season begins.
And people on low years, they don't want to sign up until December when it's
Exactly.
snowing.
Yeah.
And it's just, there should be.
So I would
dead
put
date.
September 15 myself, yes.
Well, it would be the contract signing date.
Well, that or the start of the season, which Bertrand said October 15th.
Yeah, October 15.
And the
So
second,
that would solve this issue. There's no change possible after.
The only thing it doesn't solve is in a blizzard conditions, a first year snow removal guy plows the driveway next to the one that he's supposed to plow. And it happened. I know we plowed one driveway multiple times despite Dave yelling and making sure that he wasn't supposed to do it. It happened. We have to go into the data, back it out every time that happens. This would eliminate all that.
There was only 5 situations here. So
It's multiple times over. And it's,
128 was at the end.
yeah, and it's not only 5 because it was, I mean, we started, I think there were 13 or 18 out, and then there were more came in, then 1 came out, then 2 more came in, and 3 more went out.
I don't know the detail, but
Yes.
what I'm saying is this should not be allowed, period.
What if someone buys a house after October 15th?
But for them, that next year. I mean, if you don't want to accommodate them,
Yeah.
that's what it should be. if you cannot accommodate the changes, let's say it this way, if you cannot accommodate the changes during the season because it involves more training and more, that's the way it is.
Any other comments on this one?
The only thing I would mention is that when we did talk about switching to this, I was assured by then President Judy Flynn of the KMA that they would be revisiting their bylaws to do this, and it's been 3 years and nothing's been
Yeah,
done,
it's quite a
obviously.
few years in a row to change the bylaws and without success because we never got the quorum.
Mm.
I mean, we got the quorum, but not the full majority. It's the majority of the, it's not the majority of the quorum, it's the majority of the.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
So for 2 years in a row, we did try.
I think Jay had a comment.
Yeah.
Okay, Jay,
Just one simple comment that I think could.
let's get close enough so they
Get a
can.
little closer.
Issue.
Closer.
In Serene Lakes on Donner Summit, there's multiple snow removal companies that do different driveways. And they simply put a little metal medallion above the garage door, and that tells the operator it's one of their driveways to do. So.
But you can't even see out of the machine to start with.
Yeah.
It's just like the East Meadows when they first took over, it's like, oh, we'll leave the porch light on, you'll know we're there to do the driveway. So I said, you leave it on all the time anyway, and I still can't see the darn light through the fog up window in a blizzard.
So we're gonna defer on that one item.
I think at the minimum, we're gonna say that we're not going to allow changes after contract, after either the start of the snow season or the contract signing, whichever occurs first. I mean, I don't think we should operate if they haven't signed and the snow season starts, right? So the contract is firm, there's no changes afterwards. John or Doug, do you have any additional things to add? Doug?
I was just saying, I mean, I guess going to the second part, I guess the next conversation is, and Eric, like you said, like we could still accidentally plow. If it doesn't change, people could still accidentally plow it, right? People that are the 5, they're not in. So there's still labor associated with that. And I guess potentially in that next section is to cover that cost, you would charge the HOAs that are still not, that are not in the all or none option specifically for that cost to do that potentially, I guess, if that's, you know, another way of allocating the cost.
Yeah, I mean, it would be administrative time that it takes us to do that. So yeah, that would be recouped if the next section goes, you're right. So maybe that is a way to try it. I mean, we can try it.
I misunderstood what Doug was proposing.
Sorry, he was talking about the next section about excessive administrative time.
Yes.
And so he said, if we did go with your suggestion and a driveway was misplowed and we have to do the administrative time because of this contract type, we would just, that'd be part of what we charge in the next section.
I personally, I would just block it at the beginning of the season. Keep it simple.
Yeah, that's the intention.
Yeah.
Okay, the second thing we're discussing is there will be a clause added to the contract that recognizes the fact that if there is no more snow storage area,
yes,
that we can't plow. And that's really to have the HOAs look at their snow storage availability. And if they run out, you know, that is a factor to consider. So it gives us, it gives a warning that we can't carry the snow to somebody else's HOA.
Yeah, I know. I have no problem with that.
Okay.
So do we, and they would try to enforce,
No.
I think that's a second question.
So what I can tell you, and Enfler has a question after that too. Cool, thank you. So on the new subdivisions that are being proposed, and of which there are quite a few, and there's infill of existing subdivisions. So Caples View just got bought. That's our only snow storage. If that gets built, we will not be able to plow Caples View. Sentinels West is in the process of building 2 more triplexes. It takes away almost all of our storage. We have the island in the middle.
right?
And that's it.
Or a very narrow road.
Or no road at all.
Or no road at all, which is what,
No,
yeah, so, or we have a new subdivision, Palisades 6, who we have simply told, your plan doesn't provide places for us to put the snow. We will not offer a contract to this subdivision. or the Thunder Mountain Lodge who wanted to do a gated community. We will not offer snow removal services if there's a gate and you don't have sufficient snow storage. So we are telling them we won't provide this service. It's not our jurisdiction because this is an optional service we provide. We don't have to do this service. So TriTac, we've told them, here's our comment, there's not enough snow storage, but they can still approve it and the counties can still approve it regardless of our comment. Because we don't have any jurisdictional authority relative to that because it's a contract service. So we do tell them on these ones that I just mentioned, we have been talking to TriTac. They are aware. The developers are aware. We've been talking to them too. So no one building new stuff is going into this blind. It's all the old stuff we inherited. The other aspect too that is omitted by this, almost all of KMA, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, has 30-foot setback for snow storage. I think KMA 3 might have had 25. KMA and TriTac continue to approve encroachments into that, which eliminates snow storage. So when those subdivisions were approved, we had 30 feet all the way around all the roads. Every time a house gets closer, a garage gets closer, a driveway is installed, they've eliminated some of what the original map approved, closer to the road. So that's another problem. So it's not even just infill, it's also we're losing snow storage that was previously dedicated. And driveways, and we totally understand that and we're sympathetic to it, but we don't object to TriTac approving and we just tell them, hey, this is a problem for us and you do what you want to do. You're the jurisdictional authority.
It's kind of an unrelated question that has to do with TriTac. Are they going to enforce deed restrictions?
I have no idea.
Okay, so,
all right, just curious.
And Fleur.
Yeah, this is a much bigger problem. Because you can't have a development, I mean, all this has been designed through a planning process with theoretically consideration for snow removal. And if you have parcels that are designed to be able to be built on, then going and saying, oh, if you build there, we can't provide snow removal for your whole street anymore or for this zone. I mean, that doesn't work in our community. We need to come up with overarching plans that work to provide snow removal services for the areas that are built. In KMA, we have a problem where there's 25-foot setbacks throughout KMA. They're the same everywhere. With a 5-foot setback for garages, which was added in later, but in conjunction with discussions with TriTac and discussions about snow removal. And so you can't then go back and say, okay, this person can build a driveway, but we store snow on this person's property. And because this person got a garage, we now have to store their snow on this person's property. So they're not allowed to build the same thing. That's just, you can't function, you can't have planning rules that work that way. It doesn't work that way.
right, and that's not what we're saying.
Well, it kind of is, because you're saying if somebody does build it, we aren't going to be able to provide the snow removal service anymore.
All we're saying is if there's no snow storage left, we can't plow.
Well, that's exactly what we just said. If the snow storage, someone builds their house.
It's a function of the snow year and what's available. We move it around within the HOA.
Just conditionally, depending on the season.
If we run out of, the hard problem is going to be Sentinels West.
Right.
If there's just no place left to put the snow, we stop plowing until there's room again.
So I think that it's a problem that should be addressed upfront with any new construction. And I actually plan on bringing this back to KMPUD as well. And every other snow jurisdiction we work for, they require us to show snow storage with a percentage of how much area of the area we're using for driveways and parking for snow storage. That doesn't happen in this community. And it should, because we have a problem. And if we say we need to have the place for snow, designers, planners need to be planning that into their projects.
Right.
And we need to set up a standard of, this is the minimum amount that you need to provide. And that's pretty typical, which gives people something to work with if they have a metric to build to.
Yeah, I don't think anybody disagrees with that's the way it should be done. But in the purpose of time for this particular meeting, there are two things we wanted to discuss. One is that we're going to include in the contract a statement that says, if there is no storage left for whatever reason in your HOA, we'll stop plowing until there's a place to put the snow.
Well, actually, it's not part of the item.
It's in the
Yeah,
background.
but not in the background. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
not in
And then the
requested
other,
action.
and then the other is that no changes once the contract is enforced.
Me, Charles has her hand up.
Yep.
Go ahead, Ray. Got to unmute.
I'll do that.
There you go.
So can you hear me now? Thank you. I was just trying to write in the Q&A because the chat box, I don't know why you don't have the chat box enabled. It would be nice to have so we could alert people. That said, there's been some comments. I'm worried. If people don't know, I'm the current president of KMA. That some of the comments that have been made about KMA are not true. Judy Flynn wasn't the president when this change was made. It was Nancy Trevette, and then it was me. And when the actual change was made, it was me. Secondly, the comment about the 30-foot frontage on all lots is not true. You can look into it. It's variable. It depends on the house. It's quite variable. Our frontage was 14 feet. That was, and it's not really. If you look in the plans, it's dedicated for parking and parking pads, not snow storage. And all plans do come before KMPUD just for an approval when we have these variances. We have to have driveways, regardless of the fact of when they're not plowed, you can't use them, but we have to have access to our houses just like every other place. When KMA, of course, was first started, there was the roads weren't plowed and there was transportation. So if we want to go back to that, maybe we have to do that. But on the other item about, we did have deadlines. We do get the contracts late. I'm perfectly happy to say to everyone that if they don't have it in by the deadline, there's no prorated. There was no reason to do any proration or anything like that. Several of them were new in this last contract period. And then finally, the all or nothing does not work for KMA. It's because we haven't had the long history of having driveways, so that to me it should not be a requirement made, particularly with this short of notice. Any questions?
I'd like to make just a quick comment on some of the stuff Ann Flor said, and she's very accurate on snow storage and part of the problems. And I know plans come before the PUD, but just like I talked about the two new driveways, and I think yours is one of them up on Dangberg, there is no snow storage for the driveways. The HOAs need to control it because they're building driveways where there's not enough snow storage for that driveway, and the snow is getting put into the road and into other lots because the driveways are being designed that don't have enough snow storage to start with. And that needs to start with the HOAs dictating what they get built and how it's getting built in their own HOAs.
And TriTac to Ann Flor's point.
Yeah.
So they can definitely advocate with TriTac to incorporate that, because
it's not the PUD's job to tell you guys what to build and how to do it. It's for you to control your association so the PUD can accomplish snow removal.
Yeah, and we don't review plans for snow storage. We review them for our utilities. We offer comments, but we don't request any action based on our comments. So Jack Longinati had a question in the chat, so I'll just read it out loud. How can KMPUD get guidance out to HOAs on the order of magnitude of the increase in cost of snow removal for 2024? When we get this next, whoa, gosh, that's a much longer one, Jack. Sure you don't want to just talk? Once this budget, when we revise it, we'll send it out to the HOAs just to make sure we have an HOA president list to make sure and get it out to them. Yeah, and the budgets have basically, the HOA pricing has always gone out around August to the HOAs, sometimes much later before I got here, as late as October. So that's been consistent for at least 7 years in August, and prior to that, much later in the fall. So, but we will get out this one because this is a dramatic change. Good point, Jack. Thank you.
Okay, so the two comments, one is that no changes after the contract is done, that we'll enforce that. And the second is that there will be a notice in the contract itself that warns that if there is no more snow storage, we may not be able to plow until there's space returns.
HOAs.
And from what you've said, there's an issue with driveways as well.
Yeah, but to the point that Dave raised earlier is you have to start blowing, expecting a big year at the beginning, otherwise you just tunnel yourself.
Yeah.
And then you're done. Why? So that's on the KMPUD part.
Okay.
That's
All right.
maybe we should
Okay.
let the community know that KMPUD will do the most to try to manage snow storage efficiently.
This entire meeting can't be about snow removal. We have other things to finish.
And Dave is now 5 minutes past his retirement.
I am going to wrap up. I am going to wrap up the snow removal side of this now. And Dave, I want to thank you.
Can I get direction or just consensus that leave the snow stakes up so I can avoid more costs?
Yeah, and leaving the snow
That's a
stakes up.
no-brainer. There'll be a lot of fixing to do on them, but yeah, you should.
Yeah, well, we'll know where to fix.
Yeah, and it also is going to make it easier for us when the snow melts to start going in and correct those.
The comment on that I would have is, I think certainly don't want to do that every year because.
Agreed.
Yeah,
agreed. I'm just trying to save money.
Yeah, specifically due to the extra amount of snow.
And we don't have the labor now to do it.
Yeah.
And then the last one that I need confirmed direction on is we're going to set up separate billing accounts for all administrative time over a certain amount, and I'd recommend it be 60 minutes.
I have a tiny problem with that because there are big HOAs and small HOAs. So if you take unit 3, it's less than 1% of KMA, and you say you don't want to spend a little bit more time with KMA. I just think.
So East Meadows is the same size as KMA, and I don't spend as much time with East Meadows as KMA. So it's not based on size. It's Sun Meadows. All the stuff we went through in Sun Meadows last year, very small. They should have been charged for all the time that they incurred.
You say, as an example, Sun Meadow took a lot of time, but I think that's a gesture that the PUD can do for the community because we want people to be happy. And I think if you start to nickel and dime people and they don't want to ask questions because they are going to be charged an administrative fee, that's a weird way to do a business, in my opinion.
On the flip side of that argument, why should I and Meadowstone pay for 20 hours of time if East Meadows is continuing to do that in terms of the overall snow removal budget? Because Meadowstone would inherit some of the time I was spending with East Meadows, for example, or with Whiskey Towers, for example.
I think it's fair to establish a reasonable amount of time to do the worst case contract. And if that's exceeded, then to be able to charge back. So there's some limit on the amount of time.
Yeah.
And if 60 minutes isn't the right number,
I
think it's up to the general manager to tell us what's the right number to say this is a reasonable amount of time for a complicated HOA to set things up, and whatever that is, if it goes over it.
But you can expect that a bigger HOA will have more issues than a small HOA.
That's right. So I think what we're trying to do is say, you have a discretion to say what's a reasonable amount of time for the largest contract, and to establish that, and if it goes over it. Okay, and so in the final budget, let us know what you think the time is. You know, is it 60 minutes? Is it, some amount? It should be bounded by some number and not based on the smallest account. Okay,
great.
All right, we're going to move off of snow removal.
The last topic where you're talking about the deadline for signing up and not doing.
That's included already. Yes.
Yeah, that's the guidelines for passing on.
Okay, I just have one really quick suggestion on not being able to do snow removal once you run out of snow storage. I would recommend adding that emergency service access will be prioritized before everything else. Because if you could run out of snow removal in wintergreen cul-de-sac, having emergency access is still critical. And so I would urge you to include something about that in there, but that.
There is
that will still be-
phraseology in there already in the contracts that there is something already in the clauses of the contracts that addresses that. That our focus will first be
Okay.
emergency access zones. Yeah, that's in there already.
All right.
Different section, but it's in there.
So Dave, thank you we
you,
ran
Dave.
over, we apologize.
Appreciate all your help, man.
We thank you
Thank you.
for everything you've done.
Thank you.
Good luck.
You still
Session of 20
residing
minutes.
in the area?
What's
I don't know
Still
what to do.
residing in Fairfield?
Oh, yeah, not one.
So we'll see you.
I never planned on speaking now. Okay, we're now gonna go in the turbo mode.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll start with 9A on finances. Tommy?
We'll see how turbo mode goes. Scrolling is turbo mode for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying. Give me a
I
I think we're just
appreciate
looking
it.
for the overview and budget variances.
Which is scroll up one more.
Yep, I saw that.
Thank you. So the big thing that was caught this month when we do escrow closes, which we haven't done too much in the past until quite recently, and then the new staff kind of came in and we did a miscalculation. We just miskeyed a step in there. When you have an escrow close, you have to read in the meter for the new customer and you have to read out the meter for the old customer, the person who's selling it. That was just miskeyed. Largely miskeyed, unfortunately, but we caught it as soon as we closed that period. As soon as we close the period, we run reports and immediately it jumped out to us. I mean, look, you could see these numbers, 630,000 was definitely eye-opening. So we caught it right away. We contacted the two customers that were affected immediately. They were the only customers that were affected because it was manually entered wrong. There was nothing wrong with the system. It was just a manual entry. And so we apologize to those customers, and I apologize that it's going to bleed to this period and you'll show a negative amount in this exact amount in the next period that will throw everything off. So that's why I wanted to kind of break everything down in this one. I hope it was helpful. I'll do it again next month. So hopefully
This
that
is
will be
because
helpful
it
as well.
fell on the end of a month and the beginning of a month. So we corrected, we caught it here, fixed it in this month, and then we'll have to do the negative in the next month because the 31st versus the 1st. That's why.
Yeah, we reached out to PCS to see
The
if they
net
could-
zero to the
It's a net
district.
zero.
Ask immediately, yes, because I'm confused that effectively I can understand that you can key in.
There was one extra zero typed in.
And clearly of the magnitude of the error, it was eye-opening. But what I don't understand is how come you could not fix it before the report?
So
Because-
what happens as soon as you run accounts receivable, you close the period. So that nothing else bleeds into that past period. You close the period, you run the reports, and that's when we are able to see it. You can't run the reports till you've closed the period. We asked
You have to
PCS
issue
if
the
they could
bills.
reopen. The bills were changed. The bills had adjustments to them, but the adjustment, and we sent out adjustment bills to those customers. Those customers don't have a problem with this. It's just our reports that are going to be, that look off. High this month, low next month.
And it's a net zero.
It's a net
I
zero.
understand that,
Exactly.
but still, I mean, I've never seen something like that, but people end up with a 400K almost of a.
$600,000 bill.
Yeah, it
Neither
was,
did we.
once
Neither did
you
we.
caught it, I mean, one was 22,000 and the other was 610,000. We caught the 22,000 one first and we thought that was eye-opening until we caught the other one.
Okay, keep going.
So those are those numbers that are right there. And then I kind of broke out in each one with the correction, what it would be. So income year to date is better than budget. We've decided to go better and worse than budget to try and make it simpler for everyone. That was John's recommendation, so thank you for that. But then if there's specific incomes that we want to look at, like the fire department was a negative 239,000. That's not looking at it against budget. That's just looking at it as itself, as a single entity. The water fund, after the correction year to date, was better than budget, $105,000. March is up from better than budget, $12,000. Wastewater is, ooh, I forgot a dollar,
Worse
is
than
better
budget.
than budget, 147,000 after the correction. March is actually worse than budget by 31,000. Electric is worse than budget by 258,000 after the correction. March is better than budget by 42,000. And again, that was that large amount that's come down looking at the bills for the cost of electricity. It's kind of come back down to a reasonable range, which is at 16 cents. Snow removal is worse than budget by 19,000. Unfortunately, propane is better than budget year to date by 76,000. And March is actually better than budget by 47,000. Solid waste is better than budget by 14,000. But March, due to labor hours and clearing the snow from the pad still, was why that was going so down. Any specific questions on the overview from the board?
I have a question, not that much on the accounting of it, but on how we are going to operate on the electrical thing. Because...
That's going to come up.
Okay.
When we talk about the operating budget.
Okay.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's
but
fine.
for both
That's fine.
propane and electric, we have specific policies to
Yes,
discuss.
Yes.
Okay.
And then let me see.
Okay, I'm gonna.
That was the biggest one that was I was concerned on how we are going to operate because
Absolutely.
we have a problem and
You can keep that. Okay, I'll give you the privilege of coming back and asking. but
I
let's
just
keep
come back.
moving.
Just keep,
Okay, all right. Can we wrap that up for finances then? Because I think looking at the data until these are corrected is just hard.
Sadly.
And I think the summary hits it
The
right.
summary hits the high point, which is, with the exception of the cost of power, this has been a great year financially, and that's a big exception that we'll talk about in the next section. Okay, so that's it for finances. I'd like to move on now to the interfund loans, 9B.
So this went through finance. I think we're going to talk, well, there's nothing else in the interfund loan except for the new interfund loan for snow removal. I will try and spread that out some more as per the board's request. But the existing interfund loans have repayment schedules. And so finance recommends that, I'm sorry, yeah, page 44 and 45 recommends, so on solid waste we'll start repaying that, and we'll build that into the budget, start repaying that over the course of the repayment period, which will be about $7,500 per year on solid waste. The final one will be whatever it's going to be, because the interest rates, we just can't predict what they're going to be right now. And then wastewater will continue to repay through its period, which is about $8,000 per year, and then a final repayment of approximately $7,500, obviously subject to the final LAIF. So finance recommends we begin repaying these notes.
Okay, John, do you want to add anything to that? Comments?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay. Other questions?
On the loans now.
On the loans now, okay. So there's a request that the board concur with the repayment schedule. So can we do a roll call?
Sure.
Okay.
Epstein,
Yes.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Edith,
Aye.
Perot,
Aye.
Garber, aye.
Okay. Great. So next is item C, which is the budget assumptions. And I think we
if I could interrupt, Bob, I'll
Yeah.
go through this really fast because we do have a closed session. We're gonna have to put it at 4 o'clock, so we have 11 minutes. But I'll run through this quick. So there's been some corrections to the assumptions based on things that Tommy and I and John and Bob have caught in terms of the overall budget. So I'll just run through those if it's anything different, just to let you know. So under rates, so purchase power experienced significant fluctuations and uncharacteristic winter price spikes. For example, day ahead pricing increased by 1,000% on multiple days. So the purchase power is budgeted to increase from 0.085 cents per kilowatt hour to 0.09. That was the budget. It was not 12 to 22. This is the correct numbers on the purchase price. So what we were recommending that the board consider is that we should try to accommodate extreme fluctuations and have it investigated by the board, and a potential surcharge similar to that which has successfully worked in propane be implemented for when we get these huge fluctuations. And then the rec purchase price.
Well, as long as I don't want to make the same, what I feel like is a bit of a mistake with propane where we're offset by a month of who pays for whatever those surcharges, it feels like. So as long as people who pay for this pay for it, who use the electricity, I would be okay with.
That presumes that I get the Shell invoices immediately, which I won't.
The other possible way of doing that is we can monitor the day ahead pricing.
Oh, I know what he's saying. Never mind. You're right, Doug.
Yeah. So what we would, a possible implementation is we monitor the day ahead pricing. And if it falls outside of a range of what we might expect, then we would do an adjustment for that month.
No, I think what he was saying, what I agree with, is that when we have a correction, whether it's up or down, we apply it to the prior month's kilowatt hours, not the current month's kilowatt
That's
hours,
correct.
which we
That's
do in
what I'm
propane.
saying. Yeah.
Okay, so we would, but we don't need a monitor day ahead market. We would actually get our Shell invoices and just apply it for the period. Our Shell invoices can cover 3 months in one invoice. So we would have to make corrections multiple times based on kilowatt hours used for multiple months. So
What can we do?
Well, that's why we
an average for the month? So for the billing period?
we would, but what I'm saying is I could get a Shell invoice today that is for February, November of last year, and March. It could be corrections. Mostly they're corrections. So we would have to apply November to November. We'd have to apply April to April, so on and so forth. So that would be something. This is just a suggestion, and the assumptions that the board bring this back and consider implementing this to deal with this known issue.
That's required 218 process?
No, electric doesn't require 218.
Okay.
But that would be something we would bring back to the board outside of this, but I've put it in the assumptions just so the board can think about it, and then we can bring it back for discussion.
Let me just try explain.
You're gonna have to
explain this. We can estimate what we think the power cost is, but we're charging a fixed rate. So as long as they stay reasonably close, we're fine. But if there's a dramatic change, like what happens where power went up a factor of 10 in one period, we have no way to recover that. We have 2 options of what we could do. One is we can have our rates high enough so if extraordinary events happen, we're still covered. That would mean having the rates be higher than we need to make them just to cover in case this event happens. The other way to do it is to come up with some structure, which we don't have to decide today, like we do with propane. If there are extraordinary temporary price increases that occurred during the billing period, we add a surcharge in that billing period to cover that. That's exactly how we do propane. We have a budgeted amount, and if there's a variation above or below, we adjust it. We don't need to do the 6th digit on that, but just have it be close, and we cover the overage. So this year there was about $200,000 in additional costs that just occurred in a short period of time. We're taking that out of property taxes, paying for it out of property tax because we have no other remedy. We can't continue to operate that way. So the idea would be is we're approving this budget with a rate, with the understanding that we would look to add an ordinance that would give us the ability to do an adjustment if there's an extraordinary increase that occurs.
So for the last year, we basically paid twice the amount, the kilowatt hours than we were expecting about. And and that is in excess to what we charge actually. So that's the problem. But I would like to bring, if you do that, I would like to bring the concern about avoiding costs that should be adjusted as well. The avoided cost.
We adjust the avoided cost?
Yeah. If you do so. So at least once a year, because actually that's what's in, it's on, it just, we need to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the costs need to reflect the reality.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Would it be possible if we did biannual or quarterly rate adjustments? Right, so you go through the winter, the power is fluctuating. You come into the summer and you make up the adjustments in the summer.
I think it's,
And then the next year you make up.
I
You go
think,
over or under.
let me say the mountain utilities used to do that, and as a way of cost shifting.
Well, they did it monthly.
And they, well,
So
I don't want to go into the discussion about how they did it. The main point is the fact that we want to make sure that the actual cost during that month, that the people who use the power pay what it actually cost in that same time period. Whatever the structure is we decide on, that we have some way of doing an adjustment and some way of knowing what the overage was in that period.
On propane, correction, the usage rate, we're going to 20%, and it has to do not only with CPI, but it has to do with, we are no longer getting wholesale. We no longer have a wholesale contract. We were paying retail rates for propane. So that's the big change on why the propane went up. And the assumptions, I added the interfund loan repayments that we just talked about as well. I updated the interfund loan repayment for snow removal as well.
Can I say something on the propane before?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, based on what I heard at the last operation committee, we actually now have two suppliers.
Yes.
Kiva providing from the Nevada side, and I think that should be reflected in the budget description, because now you say we change supplier to Hunt.
It is in the one I just read you.
Yeah.
That's why I said I just updated it.
Okay.
We have the old one.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did update that to reflect retail rates from Kiva and Hunt and Sons. It says, it does say that. Yeah.
And then there's a question I would ask. You pick 20%, but is that just for the coming year or for the 5 years? Because if you look at the number in your budget, it's only the first year.
Only the first year, because this is the time we switch to retail. It's part of what we're going through now. We're obviously already switched to retail. We're paying retail rates now.
Yeah.
But next year I upped it by 20% to account for the retail shift. We're not going to shift to retail multiple times. Once we shift,
It's when we shift.
It's one and done.
It's not like the
Right.
cost of term or whatever they use it cubic feet is not changing. It's just one-time expenses.
Because we're going from wholesale contract to retail contract.
And that's a choice or that's imposed?
We don't have a choice. Yeah, it's imposed. Yeah. They don't want us as a wholesale contract anymore. It was too difficult for them for too little return. And they're the only wholesaler. No one else is interested.
Propane will be 20% more expensive.
And then it will go up hopefully by CPI. After that, it'll fall into the CPI.
I'm confused why it changes here, because I'm assuming the rate is different, is it? The cost of the propane is different wholesale versus retail.
Yes, and then hopefully now that we're on the retail rate, it hopefully will just go up by CPI. I'm not getting changed to retail rate over and over again. Yes, it's not to catch up, but it's to reflect. We were paying wholesale rates, now we're paying market rates, which is more expensive. We're paying retail rates, which is more expensive.
Okay, I think I got it.
Okay. And then just because what we're already starting to see, and I talked with you before the meeting, Bertrand, we expect there's going to be some severe weather damage to our equipment, critical infrastructure. And I would like the board to consider adding a seasonal full-time operator to only work on infrastructure repairs. And if he has time, non-critical, but I doubt he will have time. So this is a new one I added. It's not in there, Bertrand, it's new. This is why I say it's new. But I would like the board to consider potentially approving a seasonal, and I would add that into the budget, but I would need board to say yes, do that, so I can add that into the budget. But I'm worried we're not gonna be able to get to critical infrastructure stuff with our current staffing levels, because I think there's gonna be a ton of damage.
And keeping a seasonal operator means it's likely that will happen for next year.
Yeah, could it be one of our snow removal that just left that we could bring back? Possibly, yeah.
Turning our cabinets.
Everything. I mean, the roof that Bertrand was just talking about, our operators don't have time to re-roof, right? So things like that, or crushed cabinets, or okay,
Whatever it is.
whatever it is, it's bad. But yeah, we
Well,
anticipate
and,
it to be a lot.
Eric, I would also contact, like, it would be helpful to get some context on like almost the ROI on an investment like that. If it, given what we've talked about with snow removal, if it's like the cost of getting someone new and finding, if we can retain this person for another season, maybe the cost of having them full time in the summer can pay for itself, not just in the work that they do over the summer, but in the avoided costs of training and upskilling someone else to come in if we can retain them for another full season as well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the only thing I would caution on that is after 1,000 hours, we have to start paying PERS, which is
PERS.
additional cost, additional 7% cost on the district that we wouldn't have on other labor. Not a big deal at the end of the day. Don't get me wrong. But that's just something to be conscientious of. But yeah, I you know, the other on your question about ROI to that point, if I was to hire out contractors for this, one, I'd have to be able to find contractors. Everybody's busy. Two, I'm going to be paying prevailing wage, and a day labor on prevailing wage is about, what are they at right now? $38 an hour, plus overhead, which pushes it up to, $60 an hour. I'm sure I can get a seasonal for much less than that could help out. So if I have to do this with contractors, it's going to be way more expensive, and we're going to be blowing budgets left and right.
I would agree with that.
So is there consensus from the board that this is okay? John?
Yeah, I think so. I'd recommend it. I support it.
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm good with it.
Okay.
I'm okay.
So what I will do then is incorporate all these changes and then bring it back at the next board meeting for actual approval. But I just don't want to bring it back and have a discussion and have to delete stuff again. So that, appreciate it.
Not today, just before.
Not today, just before. And then just again, on the changes and corrections, I just added in the electric purchase power is beyond the rate study assumptions, the seasonal, which we just talked about, and the interfund loan repayment. So those are kind of the differences from last year's. Again, this will be presented at the June 9th meeting for the board to formally adopt, but hopefully there'll be no more discussion on it. All right. Okay, budget.
Hold on, I have a comment on 6 actually, property tax.
Hold on a second. I got to scroll back up, Bertrand.
And that's related to the fire department, actually. Let me see if I can find my stuff. Page 54.
Yeah, I'm there.
So I see that you have this section of property tax explaining things, but I see nothing about TOT, transient occupancy tax. And the reason I'm raising that is because this tax is actually levied by the counties for any rental within our area.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually designed to pay for things like emergency service on 88. And I know, if I understood, I don't know, but I understood that we actually don't get any money specifically from any of the county to offer EMT, emergency service, I should say, not EMT, on 88 until the other agencies can take over. And I think we should ask money from them on the TOT.
So we do get TOT from Alpine. We do.
Not Amador.
And not El Dorado. And it's about Alpine. Tommy, correct me if I'm wrong. It's when
Alpine was $29,627
about $30,000
last year.
a year. Is what so we do get that from Alpine.
And Amador, we still have a fair number of houses here. So I think we should look into that, trying to contact them so we can actually, that's specifically to fund the fire department.
Okay.
Does Amador pay for the workman's compensation?
That's part of it. That's, yes, they do. They pay for workman's comp for us. They cover our workman's compensation for the fire department.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not TOT, but it's
TOT, they collect specific money for the impact on infrastructure security.
But they gave us that instead of TOT. So they would rescind that and we'd get TOT,
For
so.
the purpose of today's meeting,
Go ahead.
doing
That was
more,
part of the
trying
budget.
to get more out of
Yes,
TOT.
yes,
is
yes,
your
yes, yes,
question. Okay,
yes.
I'll make a note of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, the,
Original budget,
so I think that's really all we should cover in the operational budget, because.
Could I just
unless
say-
you have some specific-
I just want to say one general thing.
Yeah.
In the operational budget, there was a formulaic error across all funds for the projected year-end totals. So those are wrong. There was just an error in the formula that bled through everything. So that column on every page is wrong
On the
on the operational budget. Everyone that projected year-end actuals is wrong. So there's no need to discuss it. It's just wrong. We will fix it in the next time.
I think there's still a few that I'd like to share with you. Before we go there, I have a question.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
can we
On
adjust to
page
4:30? I don't know what.
I think he can. He says he's working away at his desk.
Oh,
So
okay, all right.
I did want to just say thank you to Bob and for John for catching that. I know I get kind of stuck in the nitty-gritty sometimes, so I really appreciate kind of that oversight and catching that.
Okay, so
You're very welcome.
on page 56, we are talking about the COP
he's back
memo.
on.
Yeah.
And so just first a question
There's a
is,
mistake on that page too.
so that was.
Should be August.
2023.
It's August 1st. It should be August 1st.
August 1st, 2023.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so now you.
and the
okay.
fiscal year would be
Yes,
2023 also.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's,
So I was wondering about that, yeah. Mhm.
yeah, so there's a savings that immediately is reflected in the budget from retiring a 10-year loan.
That explains the discrepancies, okay.
Yeah.
Then the next thing is, so are we, no, so I have a few details I want to show in the budget page with yellow, but that I can point to.
Just, yeah, tell me what page, Bertrand. That'd be great.
Just concerned that since so many of the numbers are wrong, it may not be a
But
great use of time.
Okay.
how many do you have, Bertrand? Because if you,
Not too many.
Oh, yeah,
I
then
mean,
just-
one of them is quite obvious, and that my
Great.
concern is it seems to indicate that the spreadsheet has been actually tampered with in a different way. Let me, if I can find.
tampered with how? Could you elaborate on that, please?
I've been typing and killing a formula beneath the same, yeah.
Gotcha.
So it's a rec, where is it?
Which one?
In Park and Rec. So.
The page number.
page
60, page 60.
77.
77. I thought you said Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, okay, I'm looking here, but I think it show up here as well.
I can go to the other page.
Copy here.
Bertrand, I'll go to the other page. It's fine.
Go to the other page. So the sum of.
Oh, this is capital. We're not on capital projects yet. We're on operational budget. Do you have anything on operational budget?
That was capital, yeah. So you're right, that's on capital, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
On operation, I do have that. but We went so much back and forth. Page 63, let's see what I have, 63. So irrigation sales are showing half of the budget. And that's not the typo, that's a question. Why do we anticipate an increase in the future years? Yeah, and I was hoping that I asked that a while ago, actually, to be able to have the number on stats on the irrigation, because it seems well. Okay, page 67.
You're asking why does irrigation take a major jump?
No,
Where?
in
we
cubic feet?
were half, almost less than half what we budgeted
Okay.
last year.
Okay. Again, so wait, Bertrand,
Staying at
Bertrand,
67.
projected year-end actuals, that whole column, as I stated, is bad. So you can't look at that.
That's why I'm
Okay.
concerned that spending any time
Okay,
on this.
okay,
isn't
let's
gonna
forget
make
about
it easier
this
time.
one. On page 67, this is that could affect operation cost. This is on the bin. There was actually a suggestion made to have been for contractors. And what I like in this proposal, it's actually good for the planet to concentrate reduce trip. So it'd be a case for being green actually. And I was really hoping that we look into that, but also we used to have a bin for electronics that we don't have, or actually I didn't see it.
We did have it last year. We
Last
have it
year?
once a year.
Okay.
ACES donates it to us and we get it around 4th of July.
So I didn't see it last year. So
It
was it at the same location?
At the same location. I even used it myself for a TV.
I was going to ask for it again because I think it was really was important. I was wondering if there's a big issue.
Yeah, no, they donate it to us. It doesn't cost us anything.
And then.
Same at the large item dumpster.
Capital thing.
Okay.
62. You understand now your 20% increase for the first year for the propane.
Well, hold on, we're in capital. Does anyone else have any questions on operational, Doug or John?
That's operation. Actually, page 61. What is this here? That let's just wait because it's probably due to the one thing as a comment, I would say that the projected kilowatt hour sales show that we have zero faith in electrification.
We currently budget by just using a 5-year average.
Right.
Yeah, but
When there's evidence to the
Yeah.
contrary, we should
Yeah.
do differently.
Yeah. But this year it's probably due to the weather. But there is more and more people.
I just pull actual data and put it into
So I
5-year.
I just think that we may want to. This could be actually higher, I think, than the 1% that is using now.
You know, it depends on how many butts are in the chairs. Because those all translate into kilowatts. So
Depends if Vale's gonna put in another lift. I mean, that's a huge kilowatt usage.
Okay, what else?
Okay, that's all on the operation. Yeah.
okay, so we're gonna close off item 9.
John or Doug have any comments before we shut that?
Anything else on 9D?
No, I think we spent a lot of time on it offline, so
Alright.
next version will be good.
Okay, so let's move on to the remaining items in the capital budget besides snow removal.
You mean the capital improvement?
The capital budget, item 9E. Which,
Instead of running through this in the interest of time, are there any questions?
let me just say this was reviewed in operations.
Right.
Do you want to comment?
About the wastewater treatment plant. The final plan is this week.
It's gone off to USDA for review, yes.
Okay. The electric master plan also, did you receive that yet?
Yes, and we have a meeting with the engineer tomorrow.
Those are two of most important things I think that we in operations in your department.
Yeah, I agree. And we reviewed the capital improvement projects.
Right.
All right, so the question is, does anyone have any comments on any of the specifics in the capital?
Okay, on the capital, so. So the first one would be page 68.
Yeah, that's the summary. That's the roll up.
Go to page.
Just tell me the fund and I'll find it for you. Next.
So if you look at the 68,000 in the 5-year total, not the sum of the 5 years. The 5 years are 28.
Oh, it might be grabbing the 35-year total. So, okay, yeah. The only thing that matters though for this budget is 23-24.
Then on the fire department, my question is fire.
It's up a couple. There you go. It's like up 3 pages. We're trying.
So there is a replacement type 1 fire truck And also a new fire truck? type?
No,
So why do we have two?
so if you look at the headers, these will help you. This is a capacity component. This is a replacement component.
Yeah,
So we're improving the type of truck we have, which is the capacity, and we're replacing the one that needs to be retired. So there's two sides of it. It's one, it's new, and one is replacing what we currently have. So it's one truck for 800,000. It just has two different areas it fits in.
One truck is costing 800.
Yes.
And it's divided in two. Okay, so in this case, yeah, it'd be nice to have half, okay, whatever. In the propane, make me think that you have also something that could be fixed. Propane, fire, electric, propane. So it says that you share an EV somewhere, yeah, mini excavator split with propane. But it's not split with propane, it's split with, I can tell you how I find it, but it's not split with propane, it's split with water.
Okay, I'll take a look at that.
No,
Yeah.
no. Let me find it.
It's
It's
not
split
split
with
with
electric. The mini excavator is split with electric.
Okay.
Huh?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Because otherwise, yeah.
Just the label needs to
Yeah,
be
the
correct.
labeling is not proper here.
Gotcha.
I have a serious concern on the propane thing on the 100K that is budgeted for the, is that in operation actually, that we have 100K for the master plan?
No, that's in capital.
So did we vote on that? I don't remember that the board had actually decided to move forward on that, did we?
I don't know the answer. I don't recall the answer to that.
I
But
think
this is a,
maybe you remember.
this is a budget. This doesn't commit us to anything.
Okay, I think I'd love to check that are realistic. Okay, so not to be worried. It's not something that's been actually approved yet.
No, we're getting a scope and fee for it as we speak.
Okay. EV truck split with water is missing in 25-26. So if you go to water.
It's up.
Water. So here you have somewhere an EV. EV, yeah, in general at the bottom. You have an EV light duty truck split with solid waste. Coming up here.
Okay.
And if you look at that 69, okay. If you move to 78, you should expect to see that second half split, and it's not there. There is the 23-24 EV truck, but there is not the 25-26 30K. Depending of the share.
Right. Yep. That's because we had to move that one up, and I moved it up in one, but not in the other. So it is in both. It's just. So if you look at solid waste, there's one for this year, but if you look at water, it's 3 years out. The water one should have been moved up. So.
So it's a remaining of the, you basically move the truck forward, so you don't have two trucks, it's just one.
No, it's just one. Each truck's about 80 grand. So
I know that.
yeah. So no, the solid waste just needs to be moved up 3 years. Yep.
No, actually, you have it.
Have it 3 years out.
40K, you already have one for 23.
Oh, the
3 years behind.
Yeah.
Since this is not the final, I think I can have a review of the next version. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for catching that.
Yeah.
Any other comments on the capital budget?
No.
Yeah, I'd like to say that. I'm assuming that the EV trucks are being mandated by the state, or is that something that we want to do?
So there is a state mandate that for fleet replacement, they just adopted the rules. What day did I talk to you?
It was on
Last Friday.
Friday.
They just adopted the rules.
I just want to bring to the board's attention, possibly an idea to greatly reduce costs from 80,000 to 20,000. Ford makes a $3,500 crate motor that's electric. You can take a gasoline engine out of a truck and put the crate motor in, and spend another 3,000 or 4,000 for batteries. And you have somebody to do it. Now you have an EV truck for $10,000-15,000. Ford actually advertises their crate motor in a 1971 Ford F-150. So it is a possibility to greatly reduce costs.
With, except for, and yes, that's good. If we had any trucks that were still in good shape, these were actually due to be replaced anyway, because they're like our tracklesses. So we have to buy a new vehicle. So we could either buy a used ICE or we could buy a new ZEV. Those are our choices. And that's what we've always done. We've never bought a new ICE. We've always bought used. So I could buy a used ICE because they were just adopted and I have a couple of years to compliance. So we could buy that, and we've been buying those around 30 to 40 grand, with the exception of the fire truck, which was a specialty thing. So we could do that. That would be a board decision, but in prior meetings with the board, they dictated that we were to buy 0 EVs. So, but if they want to change their mind, it save us a buttload of money.
Again, back again, the F-150 standard range.
Yeah.
So it's a cheap way, and it's perfectly adapted to our situation because we don't need to do to plug it every night.
The furthest we go is, out valley.
Many miles.
Much.
Yeah.
Well, the uphill is a bit of a stretch.
The uphill, the only problem would be when people have to take vehicles to training, like in Sacramento and things like that. It'd be problematic if we get down to a short range fleet, but that's down the road. We're not going to get rid of all our ICEs immediately. But yeah.
It's a good avenue to get compliant and EV and not too expensive.
Okay. Anything else on the capital budget?
No. Oh, I didn't have anything.
No? Okay.
Doug looked like he had something to say.
No, he's shaking his head.
Yeah, but I saw his face.
Oh.
All right.
I'm staring at him. He looks like he's silent.
All right.
Okay. So let's move on to performance reporting.
So Brandy had to go pick up her kids, so she is not back yet. So we could just, and she said there's really nothing substantive to talk about. So I think we just say we skip this and the propane.
The only thing she did say, and she handed me her notes, if you scroll down a page to water, right there, stop. You see the 0 under January was just a miscalculated number. That should be 1,696,612. And the March number should be, I'm sorry, for the budgeted metered gallons, the blue numbers right there. And so then that March number should be $1,385,141. Gallons. Sorry. I speak in dollars. She speaks in gallons.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Those are the things she wanted me to point out.
So I just want to mention something we don't have to debate it today, but we already spent 1 gigawatt hour in losses this year, and this is a lot. I think our 12% goal of unidentified system loss is too high, and I'm waiting eagerly to see the analysis from that consultant. Could you share that actually the draft so we can start looking at it?
No, I'm going to wait till he gets all of our comments incorporated. Yeah. Because there's mistakes in there, and there's no point in having an hour-long debate like we did about mistakes.
On the other hand, it's nice to have the frank opinion of an outsider instead of having.
Well, we will get that, but we're waiting for the report to get corrected. Okay. Okay.
Employee handbook.
Meter status.
Just skipping that. Brandy's not here.
Okay.
And really, it hasn't changed. We have 2 this month that will be shut off. That's it.
Okay. All right. So the employee handbook is next then.
Yeah, we have 47 due in June, medium range. Are we making progress on that? Because this is coming. I just hope we don't going to have to close dozens of people.
I hope so too.
And so I'm concerned on that, and I just want to know if we are actually making out of this 47, what's the anticipation?
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe worth giving people an extension because nobody can get to anything. right
Yeah.
now.
I think I mentioned that at the last meeting, yes. So we can wait another meeting, but not much.
It might be melted out.
Huh?
It might melt soon.
And they've had 2 years, so the argument of snow is good straw man, but not.
Yeah.
not
Even if they have
2
2
years.
years and they are planning to do it this spring, they cannot. And the fact is, we had an emergency situation. So I find weird that we would do shut off during an emergency situation.
On employee handbook.
Yeah, employee handbook, please.
So we had to update the employee handbook with a bunch of things from our consultant and our attorneys. So a lot of, and then there's some board implemented changes in here as well. So are there any specific questions about the update?
Well, let me just comment that the personnel committee spent a lot of time going through this because we thought we'd save everybody else some time. So we recommend the changes. It makes it reflect our actual operations, and it covers some changes that our HR firm told us is that we needed for compliance.
That's their own.
Not at housing, they are.
But not at work.
Right. I mean, aside from service animals.
I went through it, and the one question I had is why, yeah, maybe this is a compliance thing, but why do we have to scrap the fitness for duty? So it's some of our jobs actually.
We're not allowed to do that anymore.
It's a law thing.
It's a California thing.
That's what it was.
You got it. Yeah.
My next thing is on the overtime thing. You change the position that we're not qualifying for it, and
Yes.
one of them is the electric propane manager position.
The propane project, the project manager. Yes, that's an exempt position, and
Okay, but my question is in the org chart that is currently on box dating from, I think, October 22. It's not called this way, it's called supervisor.
oh, okay,
So, and also I think you may have hired new people since that time.
probably true.
And I wonder if you could update it.
I could.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Any comments?
No.
Okay, Doug, any comments?
That one.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve? Are we ready to move for approval?
Motion to approve by John.
Okay.
Schroeder.
Second.
Okay, second by Doug.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Dittoranda.
Aye.
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 Okay, then we're moving on to item J, annual salary adjustments.
So basically, we took this back after the last discussion around CPI, and what the personnel committee ultimately recommended is that we should just annually, if we update, when we update the salary ranges due to CPI, if anyone falls below the updated salary range, that we would automatically bump them to the minimum, regardless of the performance review. And then if we have another extraordinary inflationary period, we can do do a survey more often than we do them, which is triannually. So those are the two big recommendations that came out of how to deal with excessive CPI.
I want to make sure I'm following this one too, because this is follow on the conversation, I believe in February, where we're talking about merit and CPI together. And so this would then separate CPI from merit. Is that correct?
CPI would be applied to the salary ranges, and anyone that doesn't fall within the salary range after the CPI adjustment would be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we would deal with the CPI. And then if there was a hyperinflationary period again, we could accelerate the salary review, which would be able to take that into account in the salary ranges. And again,
Okay.
anyone falling outside would be adjusted in.
Okay. And then the merit was still that, I think it was 0 to
Yes.
5% is
That is
still now
correct.
in addition to all of the things that we're describing here.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. I think it's very important to separate CPI from merit. So I appreciate the personnel committees and the teams looking at this. So thank you.
Okay, other questions, comments?
No, I agree with Doug.
Okay. So motion to approve.
I'll motion.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded.
Was John seconded?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Christine,
Yes.
Schroeder,
yes,
Committed, Taronda?
Aye.
Aye. Dormer, aye.
Okay, then the last item and item 9 is the referral bonus, which Bertrand asked to do. So as this document states, we reviewed the policy, which is documented in here, which and then just verified that staff has followed this policy. So what was done is consistent with what the board policy is. If we wanted to consider a different policy, we propose that there's 3 options. One is the current policy doesn't discriminate. Whoever the referral bonus goes to, whoever does the referral. We could also, if you want to consider a different one, is say the hiring manager is not eligible for a referral bonus, or we could consider that all managers are ineligible for the referral bonus. But the actual things that happened were consistent with policy.
Just been reviewed by council.
Yeah.
Didn't find any problems with it.
Well, it does seem to happen actually, that, thank you. That's actually, that's.
If we want to discuss a change in the policy,
Yeah.
we can discuss
Yeah,
that.
let's discuss that. So
Okay,
basically,
but the board's policy was followed.
yeah, I agree. I voted for it, but I think I would have never imagined that the general manager would be eligible. Since he's actually making the final decision on any position. It's just, when we go through this conflict of interest training, they told us even the appearance, we need to avoid even the appearance of conflict of interest. So I'm not judging what's happening here, but I think it's really, especially for a public entity, it's absolutely not appropriate to have the general manager with a guy who sign on every single position to be able to pocket or find a referral bonus or find a fee, whatever you call that. Now you have 2 solutions, 2 and 3, either all manager, or just the hiring manager. But I would certainly put the general manager in all situations. But otherwise, if someone from water knows someone that could apply for electricity, I don't have a problem since they are not making the decision on the hiring. So that's a key thing. So the hiring manager and the general manager are the 2 that make the decision, if I understood correctly, and they should not be eligible to get a finder fee.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would be more general than that. I would say, most organizations that are large have like L1 to L15 or something like that. It's usually like L1 to 4 are exempt from these sorts of things. So it's just, whatever that would equate to in terms of levels would be the equivalent. I wouldn't, I don't think you have to get too, just be more specific, generalized. For
Sorry,
that.
Doug, I didn't follow what L1 to L15.
It's a governmental employee definition.
Oh,
Like whatever your tier of employment is, and it's not. I mean, it happens in private organizations too. Like you have all these levels of so pay bands are equivalent, right, across all of the organizations. So you have levels of like GM would be L1, and then L2, L3, or whatever. And so you just specify by level band and who is exempt from this, and then anyone in those bands is not eligible to receive it. I think you would just keep it to that. a couple other thoughts that I had thinking about this more is I think we should also exclude board members from this to get a referral bonus, since I guess technically we're be customers, we would fall under that provision if it continues, and then potentially also immediate family of people who are involved as well. So board members and their immediate family, the exempt staff members and their immediate families. And another concept was, I don't know if we exclude self-referrals as well, like if someone could refer themselves and give themselves a referral bonus as well. So there are other things that you might want to exempt as well.
One thing I would mention too is when we advertise, our current position we're advertising, if I go to the specialty trades to advertise, it's about $850 a pop to get those done. And based on the response from the Tahoe Tribune, for the wastewater position, we're going to have to do that. So just keep that in mind. The more we limit this, the more expensive it gets for the district.
Well, nothing precludes you from giving a referral, Eric. It just precludes you from getting a bonus for it.
John?
I mean, I'm okay if people feel strongly about some restrictions. I think the thing you have to keep in mind is we don't have very many employees, so there's not very many referrers. You know, if you want to liken this to Google or Microsoft or something, it's a little different than an 18-person company. So, you know, if you exclude too many, if you exclude all the managers, you're probably not going to get a lot of referrals, right? There's just not enough bodies left to go refer.
I totally agree. I mean, it's like, I have a lot of questions about this. I know we're really late on time. I have tons of questions about like how many people even referred anyone. Like, I know we have 2 that we gave in terms of, like, I don't even know much about how this even performed. Like, is it even worth even having this program at all or not? And I mean, at the very minimum, I mean,
we just
eliminate the program would be one thing I would suggest that we could even consider here. Like, I don't know if it's even worth doing this. But yes, if you're going to do it, I mean, I think there are very typically you would not have at least a hiring manager, and those people shouldn't be involved in, you know, whoever referrals should not be in an interview process. Like, there are lots of things that I think are kind of typical in larger organizations, but I get it. There are 18 people on our staff and it's a pretty small community. And so if you remove this, it makes it less incentivized, not impossible, you still can refer, but less incentivized. And so there are trade-offs here. And if we want to make sure that we don't have any conflicts of interest, again, we could exclude board members, families of board members, families of staff who are excluded. I mean, there are all those things we could do, or we could just get rid of the program entirely. I don't know that I have a strong opinion either way on that at this point, but those are 2 options I would consider.
I mean, it was a new program specifically related to snow removal and the gaps we had. So yeah, we could eliminate it. We didn't have it for the 6 of the 7 years I've been here. So that is an option.
I go for option 3 or eliminating.
Okay.
So 3 or what?
3 or
eliminate it.
Giving the offer.
Yeah.
Is there a
we
motion?
kind of rushed it through, and we didn't envision some of the complications.
Okay.
So
Do you want to make
I
a
would
motion?
move that we eliminate.
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Did you?
That's everything I want to say.
Fine. Okay.
Okay, Epstein,
No?
Schroeder,
No.
Minutes-Aranda,
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
Thornburg, aye.
Okay. It passes 3-2. All right, so the program's been eliminated. The other thing we just want to add on that is, I think it's really important as a board, working with the general manager, that an objection to the policy is fine, but the way it was expressed created harm. And that I would like to not
I
see.
felt cheated. Okay, I've never imagined that the proposal, because that's coming from the general managers and staff, the proposal. We voted on that.
This proposal did not come from staff. That is an absolute lie.
It come from where?
It came from the board.
From you.
Came from
Okay.
me and a personnel
Well,
department,
I can't
because
believe-
we're having
I
trouble
can't
getting
believe you
people.
don't see the conflict of interest, because I know you as an ethical person, and to me, any appearance of of conflict of interest, of corruption should be avoided.
All right, so
Period.
if you want to have a discussion with me about it, that's fine.
Yeah.
But the attack, your comments came across as harmful. And that's all I want to say.
Okay.
Okay.
But I feel cheated on this thing because I was not presented that, as I said, I've never seen that actually, what the people who are supervising the hiring could get the finder fee. I've never seen that.
Okay, I think we've covered this one.
Yeah,
All right,
let's move on.
Major project updates.
See if there's anything new here. Anything that changed from last time? The propane service line replacement, it is a 2-season project, so I just reflected that. And then depending on what the pre-design report comes back with, like I said last time, will we proceed with the tanks and roofs? That's yet to be determined. So hopefully we'll have that before the end of the fiscal year. So we can include that in the budget. It's there now, but or eliminate it, that's what I should say. And I think that's the only things that changed. And we have the design specs are to USDA for the final review. So that's good news. So we should bid that once they give us the green light. So we're on schedule with that.
Okay. General managers report.
Let's get to closed session, I think. I'll skip that. I'll defer that.
Okay. Rick, do you have anything on the operations report?
No, I'll defer everything to the next one.
Okay. Let's move on to general discussion then. Item 15.
I have a couple items here, Bob, if I don't mind. Sorry, that will slow things down a little bit, but a couple items.
Go ahead.
First of all, I just want to second. I was going to bring it up if you hadn't brought it up earlier in the meeting, that I do think it's important after reading the comments from the community and the conversations from the last board meeting that we do need to take actions and signal to the community that our intent of what our plans would be in terms of the fire department and all the ways that you emphasized. I don't think waiting until the next June meeting is probably enough time. I think we probably need to take action sooner than that. And I think involving the community and having the conversations that I think should probably be earlier than that. And I don't know if that comes from the communications committee as well, if that gets involved in this, but I think we need to have those conversations sooner than later in terms of making sure that people understand where the board intends to go and what we could be doing in that regard in terms of what this could look like if it was approved in the future.
And your second item?
The second item is, I think in general, sorry, I'm just going off here. In general, in business, we often look at like post-action reflection on things. And I think this is actually mentioned in some ways earlier in the meeting from a public comment, which I can resonate with in some ways of how, what can we do differently in terms of lots of different things and how what went well, what could have gone differently and what will we change in the future in terms of how did we approach any of the things like snow removal, any of these items. And I don't know that we often do that as a board in terms of how we communicate out. So I'd like to make sure that we think about that in the context of fire department, snow removal, propane, these sorts of things, and potentially having not right now while we're in the mix of things perhaps, but when we have time on an agenda to reflect on what we might do differently in terms of community outreach or any of these things and how we approach these topics.
Okay, great. Anything else?
One other thing that I have is I had notes from February board meeting. There was an item 9J about ordinance 2301, which is providing appeals for the district for average monthly usage calculations. At that board meeting, we decided to punt the conversation to the May meeting. It wasn't on the agenda for today. So I would like to see us talk about that before the end of the fiscal year, because if approved, that can have impacts for our customers, given the work that we did in planning to make sure that we have that brought forward. So I'd hope that we could have that as an agenda item going forward. Next, I noticed, Eric, we had CEQA statements in our agenda or in our board packet this time, and I was just kind of curious what those were and how that came on. I mean, I know what CEQA is, but I'm like, how does that work? And what is that? How is that going to play into the conversations, or what does that mean? And then my last item is just, I'm not trying to be critical in any way. It's a complicated system, but we have had a lot of typos and formulas and Excel spreadsheets and things like that. And the computer scientist in me comes out and asks, what can we do differently to make sure that we can sanity check things or have checks in place. And I just encourage staff to think about ways that we could have, other checks in place to balance these things. So it's not as hard and onerous to have to find things. And, it's just easier for everyone. So sorry, that's the computer scientist in me coming out.
Agreed. And on the formula thing, what I can tell you is some prior iterations had numbers hard coded, which created problems and apparently was modus operandi. And so we've fixed that. And obviously trying to fix it, you miss it when you're dealing with a 52 sheet spreadsheet. On your SECO question, there is a lawsuit that was recently settled, and this is recommended on advice of counsel.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you come to the conclusion that we are either exempt or whatever formulation you have?
Because we're
for
not,
example, on the propane tank project, that's typically something that I would not see as a
We're just talking about on today's agenda items.
Okay.
The agenda items identified whether there was a secret impact. So it's just
That's fine,
specific
yeah.
to the agenda items today.
Okay, so are you done, Doug, or you want me to?
I am finished. Or just, can I get acknowledgement on the that ordinance 23-1? I didn't leave space for time with that. Is that acknowledged?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I saw Bob write it down.
Thank you. I can't see that.
You have the same statement that the general manager determined that the production is exempt or otherwise not subject to CEQA. To most staff report I've seen in the packet for this meeting. So my question is, how do you come to that conclusion, basically, that we are either exempt or not subject?
By reviewing the CEQA requirements.
There's no CEQA requirements on a referral bonus.
No, so clearly. That's
Okay,
true.
so
okay, let me give me the time. I think I find the process.
while you're looking, do you have anything on the
General comments, Peter?
General discussion? Would you like to see an accelerated date for the community meeting?
That's probably a good idea.
Okay.
And also, we could revive.
It would.
Yeah.
We have, we have our staff back and getting up to speed. So yes, I think so.
I think there's a feeling that maybe that we're kind of rushing this through and we haven't. I'm just saying that's impression.
Right. Okay.
We need to kind of come back to that.
All right. On the general discussion, Doug, you already commented. John, do you have anything?
Probably just a small add to Doug's comment about doing kind of post-mortem analysis on things, to see what root cause was and things we could do better. I think there's also outstanding issues that are related to that are just way more complex than I think people would assume. Like if you look at propane, what are the challenges of adding capacity? What are the challenges to electrifying the valley, and reducing demand, all that sort of thing. And it'd be nice to have some time to discuss those things. It seems like the customers are surprised when things come up. And so the more we could get them out there and open, maybe we'll gain a better understanding from the customers. So it's just really kind of an extension of what Doug suggested.
Christian, did you have a CEQA question?
Yes, I have a CEQA question that I can respond maybe to your proposal for a special meeting.
Mm-hmm.
When would that be?
Well, the first question is, I have a proposed date. Would you like to accelerate it also instead of holding it at the next board meeting, which would be June 9th?
Yeah, everyone said yes so far.
But I didn't hear you say it.
Yes.
Okay, so you're saying yes.
Yeah, no, I think there is clearly a need for
My
discussion.
proposal is, I think the earliest date we could be available and do a good job would be the 24th of May, which would be Wednesday, and then we could figure out what time works.
Your weekend would be good.
Well, then we have staff working overtime.
Oh,
It's
or a
true.
Friday, or like a Friday.
I mean, the 26th instead of the 24th.
I think it's more likely we can get the board there.
Oh, well, we could do that. And given the microphone and the rest of that, I think it works better to just
try to
have it be a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
quite frankly.
All right.
Okay.
Everyone can hear each other.
Oh, right. Well, but instead of a hybrid.
Yeah,
Yeah, because this is kind of,
right,
it's funky.
yeah.
Okay,
So sometime at 20, between the 24th and 26th.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah.
I mean, again, the idea is to reach people, so we
Right.
need to make it easy for people.
Right,
to
and
attend.
there's less people here in May than
Right.
the rest of the year. So I think making remote work well
Yeah, remote, I think that's what we need because of.
is what I would propose. And the question I have in mind is what time of day would make it most work for people?
Yeah.
Okay, so somewhere, sometime between the 24th and 26th.
Yeah.
In that date and time, we'll work and see who's available. And work toward that. Does that?
Yeah, I
work
think
with your
that, I think
schedule?
that's fine.
Okay.
I think putting it later in the day gives people a chance to get off work potentially as well. Of course, most are retirees, but
No, well, I see some that haven't retired yet.
yes, I said most. I didn't say anecdotal anomalies.
Okay.
Doug's still working.
Well, some of the retirees aren't so retired either, to be honest with you.
Especially ones on this board, John.
Well, no, I mean, I've got a whole nother startup I'm working on, so, takes a lot, I don't have.
Maybe like at 3 o'clock to 5 or 3 to 6 or something.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. All right, so that'll be the.
Does
time.
everyone have availability on those 3 days? Is there anything bad before we start trying to?
What were the, Wednesday and Friday are better for me?
24th or 26th?
Yes.
Okay,
I just wonder if we'll get people on Memorial Day weekend Friday. We might get less
that's what
participation.
I worried about.
Yeah.
Is going into the evening on Friday of Memorial Day weekend seems like.
Driving.
Well, that's.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of think the 24th is the best.
Okay.
I don't think we can be ready earlier, and I think the
What about the
24th.
week after?
Well, then I think
Then we're in June.
the further we get into June, I think the earlier we do it, the better informed we're all going to
Just
be.
1 week difference.
Well, let's shoot for the 24th.
So the 24th, and I'll figure out what time.
Do we want to shoot for like a late afternoon, evening meeting? So like a 4 to 6, maybe?
Yeah, late afternoon will be easier for people, most likely.
Be something like that.
4 p.m. to 7.
Doug, John, does that make sense?
I am highly unlikely to be able to attend that, but
Because of the day or the time?
I'll be transiting on an airplane and very unlikely to be able to make that time. I'm out I'm on another board, the 26th and 27th.
What about the 20th? What about Thursday, the 25th?
I've got full day of board meetings that day.
Okay, and John, are you available on the 24th?
Yes.
The 23rd, Tuesday. Are you doing board meetings all day?
I could do the Tuesday. I'm available Tuesday if
Is
possible.
Tuesday the 23rd better?
That is of the dates that we're talking about. That's the only one I would be able to make.
Does that work for
So
everyone?
which day now?
Now we're talking about Tuesday, the 23rd.
John, I don't think that worked for you though.
Works for me.
Oh, okay.
It works for you?
Yeah.
Okay,
I manage.
the 23rd.
I prefer the 24th, but 23rd, I mean, I probably could.
And
organize.
4 o'clock, everybody likes the later?
Yeah, later. is
4 to
better.
7. Okay. I'll see if I can see how many people can make that work.
I think it sounds like everybody can from the board. So
Yeah, but I want to make sure that it works for the community. However, I figured that out. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Okay, all right, then we're gonna,
Two
yeah.
more things. So you asked about secret. So
Yeah.
there is one operation I think that we should at some point start considering the environmental impact is actually the snow removal operation. And it's not an easy answer how to do that, but I think it's a blanket statement that is not appropriate for everything. And what I've seen, it was use everything, including snow removal. So as I said in the past, I think at every decision that we should take at the board should look indeed at operation, finance, and everything, but we should also think about the environment.
I just want to explain, when you ask for a CEQA exemption, CEQA itself is a very long, expensive process. And this is saying that we do not require the full CEQA process. It doesn't say don't look at environmental impacts, but the specific CEQA process requires public hearings. They can be protests, etc. So if we applied that to some things,
Okay.
it is a very long This isn't saying we don't need to think about the environmental consequences. It's saying this doesn't apply to a CEQA process.
I follow you for certainly all these things. I think some people could argue with us on the way we operate snow removal if we do big changes. Anyway, I understand your point.
Okay.
My next thing I'd like to say as a general comment now is I feel that there is a degradation of the efficiency of the committees in general on what they are involved. For example, I really think the fire project, fire restructural should all have been part at some point on the planning committee. It never been there. Communication get canceled on a regular basis, and actually there is a lot of things we should communicate with the community, and we are not doing. And so that's why we now are doing these extra things. But in general, I feel that the committee are not used as best they were used in the past, and I think we should adjust that.
Okay.
I don't ever think.
No, I know you don't.
Say that again?
No. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Then this meeting is now temporarily closed. We're going to move into closed session in the other room, and then we'll come back for the adjournment. Okay. Okay, we're ready to resume the special meeting of the Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District. There was no reportable action from our closed session. And with that, if there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned. And we'll see you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
guys.